Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Fridays with Mrs. Ginny. And what a welcome back it is. So, I don't know, last night, so maybe like a little more than 24 hours ago, I was laying in bed and I was like, man, I feel pretty good. Um, and so I was like, and I went to an amusement park yesterday. Um, and so I was walking around an amusement park. That was the most exercise I had gotten in months. And so I was like, if I can walk around an amusement park, I can sit and talk and live stream to my audience. And so I was feeling really good yesterday. That does not carry over to today. I still feel all right, but I don't feel as good as I did yesterday. But nevertheless, it's time to come back. Too much has been going on in my absence. The world is just too crazy. I had to come back. I had to give some more fundamental Baptist truths because stuff is just off the rails. And so June couldn't wait. I had to come back in May. And so, yes, friends, we are back live and in color here on Mrs. Ginny. So many things I want to talk about today. And of course, this is going to be old information. This is going to be old news. But there are things that I saw in my absence that really piqued my interest. Things that I didn't really hear other people talking about. And it just reminded me why I even have my channel in the first place, like why I even do these. Because, if there are a bunch of people saying all the same thing, then your specific information might not be needed. Like you see an engagement post online, you see a post where it's like, oh, tell me how you and your spouse met, or tell me, what's your favorite way to plant, what's your favorite theory on how to plant certain things or whatever. And you see it already has like 1,000 comments. And you're like, oh, well, what I was going to say is probably already said, and they probably just don't need my information, and it's just not necessary. But that is not how it is, with the stuff that I feel like I put out on YouTube, because I feel like that the entire reason why I do YouTube is because there is a serious gap in the market when it comes to the kind of information that I give. Now, you kind of get like bits and pieces of the kind of things that I say from other people. Like you can go on, you can hear the kind of things that I say about marriage kind of from, like Matt Walsh or maybe Candace Owens. So you might get a little bit of that there, or you might be able to hear some of the things that I feel about Christianity if you watch like someone who's independent fundamental Baptist or someone who's just like a general Baptist. So you might get a little bit of that there. You might get a little bit of how I feel about modern day relationships and dating if you listen to some red pill content. So there are other places where you can get a little bit of how I think, but there is no one quite like Mrs. Ginny. And you are not going to get the quality and the level of the things that I think and the degree and the severity of them anywhere else. And so that's why I feel like, when I am gone, I mean, I am just, my absence is noticed. But anyways, we have a lot to get into. Not only is there a lot of, just public news that's going on, we're going to talk about Tia Mowry trying to get back to her husband, trying to snuggle up back to him after saying that she graduated from her marriage. We're going to talk about Candace Owens and Russell Brand converting to Catholicism, the man versus bear phenomenon that was going on Twitter, all that different stuff. And then we're also going to talk about me personally. And because I know a lot of you do not go to the community tab, like I keep telling you to, that there are still some of you who don't know why I was out. And I will talk about all of that and just give you guys a full update on Mrs. Ginny and Mrs. Ginny's thoughts about things that have been going on lately. So without further ado, let's jump right into this. And so our first story for this evening is going to be Tia Mowry. Let me share my screen so you guys can get a load of this. And so if you're not keeping up to date with this, okay, is it on? I have to pull it up. I remembered this time. Okay. And so with Tia Mowry and her husband, Corey Hardrick, bringing you guys up to speed on why I thought this story was very interesting, and I feel like I needed to talk about it because I didn't hear anybody else say this, which I was really surprised by. Not even, I mean, I'm sure somebody said it, but I didn't see anybody in my circles and the people I follow, they didn't say this. And so what's going on is that Tia Mowry abandoned her marriage, Okay, that's the truth. You're not gonna get me. You're not gonna catch me like trying to soft shoe what she did, trying to make excuses for what she did. She abandoned her marriage. She forfeited her marriage. She ran out, and I don't know if she actually committed adultery with anybody. I sure hope not. That is, we never got any confirmation on that. But she was out dating. She was out, just wearing these ridiculous outfits, looking really, really silly, embarrassing herself, more so embarrassing her husband, embarrassing her family, and just really making a mockery of herself. And this whole charade went on for about a year, okay, I think, and pretty much everybody was saying, "What are you doing? Why are you out here?" And she went on this, tour of saying how, "Oh, I graduated from my marriage. Oh, I don't need my husband anymore. Oh, there was nothing really wrong with him. He's a fine man, but I just don't need him anymore. I'm just want to leave." And she kept stressing how he didn't actually do anything wrong. Like, she kept stressing how he wasn't abusive and how he like didn't cheat on her or anything. But she just wanted to leave. And so a lot of women who, normally the sisterhood is pretty strong, they were like, "Girl, if you don't what? If you don't go back to your man, like, what do you think is out here waiting for you? You're 45 years old. Like, what are you talking about?" And so she didn't listen, went out there, made a fool of herself. And now, a year later, here we are, and she has come crawling back with her tail between her legs, reunited, reports The Sun. Tia Mowry and her ex-husband, Corey Hardrick, working things out 1 year after divorce as she tries to earn his trust back. And now, from what I saw, from what everybody was saying on my timeline, was that, "Oh, I'm happy for him. He's finally getting his flowers." Because at the meantime, while Tia was out telling everybody she graduated from her marriage, her husband mum was the word when it came to him. I didn't see him post anything. He didn't go on any talk shows. He didn't post any videos talking about their marriage. He just completely, was the same way that he had always been. I've never seen anything about Corey Hardrick saying anything about their marriage. And so he just kept that same pattern. And I think that really showed a lot about him. It showed a lot of his character. And so long story short, I hope that they do get back together. I hope that they can reconcile. And I didn't see anybody talking about this. I literally, everybody that I saw, and of course I follow a lot of red pill content. I follow a lot of pro male content creators and profiles, because I don't want to have a naturally slanted view of relationships and stuff. And I'm not saying that I'm glad that he's staying, or that I hope that he stays because she's a woman, and I just want a woman to succeed and whatever. I want a man to just put up whatever crap a woman gives him. It's not that, because I would say the same thing if it were a man, who had left and made a fool of his wife and trampled her name. And so what it really comes down to is forgiveness. And so I don't know. I mean, they're Americans and they're Black people, so there's a very good chance that they just claim the name of Christianity. There's a very good chance that they just call themselves Christians, like most people do in America. And so what kind of Christians are we if we are not practicing forgiveness, if this is not a major tenet of our lives? And so over here, I pulled up, just a quick search. If you just put forgive inside the Bible, then you get 48 instances. And the first thing that comes up is, "If ye forgive men their trespasses, your heavenly Father will also forgive you." And then Mark 11:26 says, "But if you do not forgive, neither will your Father which is in heaven forgive your trespasses." And so as a Christian, my initial like knee-jerk reaction was, "Oh my goodness, I hope that they reconcile. I hope that he forgives her." And another thing too is that also in the eyes of God, they're still married, okay? And that's something I definitely didn't hear from anybody, is the fact that, people, they get married and they get divorced, and then they run off and they date somebody else and they get married. But until you marry somebody else, you're still married to your spouse in the eyes of God. And that's why divorce and remarriage is adultery And that's why there's such a hefty penalty on it. And it's not just that, oh, I'm going to get married and I'm going to get married in the eyes of God, and then you can't get divorced in the eyes of God, because the only legitimate version of divorce in the eyes of God is death. If your spouse is still alive, you're still in the eyes of God married to them, unless you are married to somebody else. So like if I were to get divorced, I would still be, and I never married anybody else for the rest of my life after Mario. In the eyes of God, I would still be married to Mario. And so that's something else that a lot of people weren't talking about, is the fact of, if Corey Hardrick is a God-fearing man, if he's a man who reads his Bible, if he's a Christian, then that's something that, he might have known. And that's something that might have been something that was fueling how he was acting and the decisions that he was making. It's really hard to tell. And it's interesting because when I was single, I was on, I don't remember, was it, I think it was Tinder. Yeah, I think it was Tinder. I was on a few dating apps when I was single. And I remember I matched with this guy and I thought, well, okay. So when I matched with him, I didn't think he was all that. And he kept trying to like hang out with me and make plans with me. And I kept blowing him off for like a couple weeks. And then one day I was used to be really big in karaoke. And so one week I just invited him to karaoke with me. And he came and I met him in person. And I thought he was so handsome. And I thought, oh, wow, he's so cool. And we hung out and we did karaoke, and he actually got up and sang. And that really impressed me. And for pretty much like, I want to say a month, like we were inseparable. And we were going out all the time, and he was really nice, and he was buying me stuff, and he, met my family. He went to church with me. All my friends liked him. He had a cool car. Like he was just really fun. Like he cooked for me. And I really liked him. And one thing that really stood out about him to me was the fact that I would spend the night over at his house, which is wrong. I understand that. But he would never try anything. He never even kissed me in the whole time that we were hanging out and seeing each other very regularly. And I told all my friends, and I was like, oh my gosh, like he's so respectful. He's such a gentleman. We're going to be married. And they were like, he didn't even try to kiss you? Girl, something don't sound right. And so I didn't think too much of it. I was in the back of my mind, I was like, that is really strange, but I didn't think much of it. And so due to really crazy circumstances, I ended up finding out that he was married. And I confronted him about it. And he was like, oh, I'm separated. I'm just waiting for her to finish the paperwork, and then we're going to be legally divorced. And, it's all in the process. And I thought, oh, okay. And never that, Barnabas. Never using anybody. Just people go their separate ways. People don't work out. As much as I have a policy about never bad-mouthing my husband in public, I also have a policy about never bad-mouthing an ex. Because the people that you've dated are a reflection of you. So all these women out here who say, oh, all my exes are stupid, all my exes are trash, all my exes are bozos. Ma'am, the common denominator is you. So what does that say about you? And so as far as I'm concerned, all the guys I ever dated were terrific, wonderful men, and I hope they're in thriving relationships today. They just weren't for me. But going back to the story. This guy turned out to be married, and his ex, she would comment on his pictures that he posted or like things that he was doing. And I could tell that it really bothered him. And like he would reply to her comments, or like he would delete her comments and stuff. Like the cracks started to show in the fact that like something didn't seem right with the relationship between he and his ex. And eventually our relationship broke down, and it turned out that he wanted to go back to his wife. And the thing was that, because what he told me, and which I think is the truth, is that his wife cheated on him. He was in the military. And he was devastated. They had been together since they were in high school. I got married when I was 22. So I probably talking to him like when I was like 19. So I think we were both like 19. They had been together for probably like 4 years. He really loved her. He was devastated that she cheated. And so he wanted to get on a dating app and find someone new and try to, take his mind off of her. And so he was like trying to get over her, and he like, part of his mind wanted to stop liking her because he felt so betrayed by her, but deep down he still loved her. And so, and I think that that's why that he never did anything or tried anything with me, is because he felt like, I'm gonna show her, I'm gonna get her, I'm gonna find someone new, and I'm not gonna think about her. But in reality, he did, and he really liked her. And and I think, like, in the deep recesses of his mind, he always wanted to have a clean conscience toward his wife should they ever reconcile. And I don't know. He and I, stopped talking, but I think they might have reconciled. I hope so. I think I heard something through the grapevine that they were trying to work things out. Um, and so, yeah, and I was really disappointed because I really liked him. I really thought that he was great, and I was really confused as to why she was cheating on him. But bringing it back to how this relates to Corey and Tia, you know, Corey, people kept telling him, like, oh, you need to move on, you need to find somebody, half your age, you need to go get you some young, fresh woman and leave Tia alone. She's an idiot and all this stuff. But you know, men aren't as robotic as a lot of women think that they are. Okay, men, they're not as just want to stick it in anything as a lot of women claim. Men, when they fall in love, they can fall in love very deeply and very genuinely, and it just, someone new isn't just gonna do it for them. You've been with this person for 4 years or 10 years or almost 20 years, and the idea of just, oh, I'm gonna just go get somebody new, I'm gonna just go find me a new thing, the next model, that just doesn't appeal to them. And it's like, we understand that when it comes to women. Like, if Mario and I were married for like 15 years and then he ran off on me, left to go to Thailand or something, it wouldn't be just like, oh, Virginia, now you're free and you can get you a new man, you can get you a richer man, you can get you a whatever. It's like, I don't want to do that. Like, I actually love my husband. Like, I actually want to go and try to get him back. And so, I feel like people just were missing that. And I think, of course, I never met Corey. I don't know anything about him personally. But just from what I was from that story that I had in my past, where a man had a wife who stepped out and was being crazy, and he couldn't bring himself to actually cheat on her, because he really cared about her. I just find similarities between that guy and Corey. And so, yeah, I mean, if a man really cares about his wife, then he's not just going to want to up and leave her. And why would we try to push him to that? Like, why would we want to encourage him to leave his wife? Because I mean, millions of marriages, throughout time and memoriam, and even right now as we speak, people have cheated and reconciled, and their marriage has been stronger than before. Lead Clinton, he says, Ginny, is divorce ever acceptable? Not according to the Bible. I say no. And this is why, because one of the things I harp on is that you need to be King James only. And the King James explicitly, states that, well, let's pull it up so that way I'm not misquoting the verse. Because it says, for fornication. Tion. Except for the cause of fornication. Oh dear, where is it? It's in Matthew. Except for the cause of fornication. Okay, yeah, Matthew 5:32. But I say unto you that whosoever shall put away his wife, saving for the cause of fornication, causeth her to commit adultery. And whosoever shall marry her that is divorced, committeth adultery. And so, he says, for no reason at all. No, I would say no reason. And then he says, what about DV or adultery? So when it comes to, okay, so I'll address your point about adultery first. Oh wait, I thought I still had it up. I forgot I took it down. Okay, so yeah, this is the verse about the only legitimate cause, the only legitimate reasoning for divorce according to God. And so this says, except for the cause of fornication. And so what you'll find is that in the new fake Bibles, they change fornication to sexual immorality or to adultery. And fornication and adultery are not the same thing, actually. Fornication is when you have sex with someone that you are not married to and you are not married. So both parties are unmarried. That's what fornication is. Now, adultery is when one of the parties is married. And so you are an adulterer, even if you're not married, but you have sex with someone who is married. And then, of course, if both of you are married, that's adultery. And then if you're married and they're not, that's adultery. And so adultery and fornication are not the same crime. They're not the same sin. They don't get punished the same. Fornication is just punished by you need to marry that person. Adultery is punishable by the death penalty. And all God's people said amen. And so they're not the same thing. They're the same act, but the meaning of it, what's really going on behind the scenes is what's more important. And so this is why the Bible says that except for the cause of fornication, and you put away your wife, you're committing adultery. Because if you find out, like, your wedding night, in an ideal world, people would care about whether or not their spouse is a virgin. If you find out, like, before you consummate your marriage, if you find out before you guys get too deep into it that your spouse isn't a virgin, like they said they were, then that would be, they committed fornication beforehand. They said that they were a virgin. You found out that they weren't, and they'd never been married before. So you found out they were a fornicator, and you could put them away and you could say, I don't want to marry you anymore. We might have already signed the paper. You might have already kissed at the altar, but I don't want to be your spouse because you're a whore, or, what have you. And so that's the only cause for divorce as far as God is concerned. But you said also about DV. And so let's talk about DV. I believe that when it comes to DV, that is also a thing that is reconcilable. Now, people, they'll just like immediately say like, oh, that's ridiculous. But, to say that there are no marriages where people have physically assaulted each other and they reconciled and now they have a better marriage, now they have a healthy marriage, I think it's just not being realistic and honest with yourself. And also when it comes to DV, we automatically just, our knee-jerk reaction is, oh, the man's abusing his wife. Oh, the man is hitting his wife. But in reality, and honestly, what do we actually see in real life? I mean, let's get real, is that we often see women putting their hands on men. And we see that in public. We'll see out and about at a store, at a bar, at a sporting event. We'll see a woman like smack her husband upside the head or something. And we think it's cute and funny. But, if we saw a husband do that to his wife, would we think it's so cute and funny? And so I think that a lot of the time when we talk about DV, we should probably be thinking about the woman putting her hands on the man. Now, of course, that's not as deadly as it could be as a man putting his hands on his wife. But I mean, to think that every scenario of physical violence is going to end in the man, deleting his wife because of anger and because of violence, is just not legitimate. Now, of course, people don't talk about that in their marriage. People who we might look at them, people who are grandparents or our old couple at church or whoever, the people that we respect and we think that they have a good marriage, they might have dealt with DV in the past and they would never tell us. And so it's really hard to say exactly, you don't really get good numbers when it comes to couples who experienced DV in a relationship and then moved forward and walked past that and walked through that season. So it's really hard to say, but I think it's reconcilable. I would say so. Now, if it is really severe, like if the woman is her bones are being broken, she's getting she has a concussion, really serious harm is being done to her, then of course she should leave. And there's a time for separation. If there are kids involved, then she should take the kids and go to, some undisclosed location and for their own safety, of course. And then, if the husband is doing anything like beating her within an inch of her life, then she should call the police on him because that's attempted murder. And so, I'm not saying of course, we still live in a land of laws. It's not just that anything goes in marriage, if you found out that your husband was a pedophile, call the police on him. and have them arrested. So I mean, if we're talking about things that are super duper extreme, then of course, there are certain parameters for that. But people, a lot of the times when there's assault or there's abuse in a relationship, it's both ways. It's them hitting each other. It's not just one-sided. Oh, I was never doing anything wrong. I was just, this Susie homemaker, and I was doing everything right. And I met him at the door with a plate of cookies, and he just slapped them out of my hand. Like, that's just not reality. It's y'all are arguing. Y'all are both being very immature. Your tempers are flying. She might hit you first, or he might hit her first. The other one hits her back, and then they're hitting each other. It's a fight between the two of them. So it's never this one-sided, just, oh, I was just thrown on the floor for no reason, unless there's like drugs involved. So, let's see here. What if one partner continues without stopping? It would just depend on the severity. If it's really severe, if then something needs to happen, the intervention needs to happen. But when we actually talk about it in real terms of what's really going on, if a couple has a really volatile fight, they yell and scream and kick and bite, then that's not good. But that's not one party in particular is the main problem. Both of them are just out of control people, and so there's that. So that's what I say about that. But at the end of the day, that's not most people's scenarios. Most people are not, getting pummeled by their spouse on a regular basis or at any basis at all. And so, yeah, divorce is pretty much always wrong, because we don't live in a society anymore where people are going to divorce each other because they found out that they're not a virgin on their wedding night. So, just for more, just for a rule of thumb, just avoid marriage. Just avoid divorce. Starting to sound like Coach Greg Adams. Avoid marriage. Just avoid divorce at all measures, and then you'll be in the clear. And so there's that. That was what I wanted to talk about with Tia and her husband. Very disappointing. That more people were not hoping that they would fight for their marriage and keep their marriage strong. Okay. And so our next topic for today is something that you probably knew I had to talk about, because what on earth is Candace Owens and also Russell Brand converting to Catholicism? Now, Russell Brand and Candace Owens, I like both of them. I've been a fan of Candace Owens for a while, because I saw like myself in her, and I saw like, because she's 34, I believe. She's about to be 35 or turns 35 in the winter. And so I saw her like, she was me, I thought, oh, wow, she's like the famous version of me. She says a lot of stuff that I agree with, and she's conservative. And, at the time, when she first came out, she was evangelical, Protestant. I think she was considered Baptist. And so I was like, oh yeah, like Candace Owens, like she speaks for me. Like I see myself in her. And, yeah. And I'm just like, I was bedridden, and I'm listening to this whole debacle with her getting fired or her leaving. I don't know which one it was, from the Daily Wire. And she's, exposing, she's noticing a lot of things about the Hughes. And it was just great. I mean, she was just on this high ride. Like, she was doing so well. She was saying all the right stuff. And it was just like, go, Candace, you're free from your shackles and you can finally speak the truth. And then it's like, I mean, I really wish I had a soundboard. I really need sound effects. But it was just like, dun, 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 like the little Price is Wrong sound. It's like she comes out with this and she's like, I returned home. I'm Catholic now. And it was like, good night. I mean, Candace, talk about an L. I mean, y'all, yeah, if you follow me, then you know that I was just so disappointed when I saw this, because it's like, girl, you're supposed to be somebody who is a champion for truth, somebody who is a champion for all things who are true and right. And, she, like, because I mean, I've heard some questionable things about Candace Owens, but more often than not, it's like, Candace Owens, she fights for the truth, and she's somebody and she'll follow the truth wherever it takes her, and she doesn't have biases or agendas or anything. And she's just a freedom fighter. And then she comes out with this. I said, oh nah. Hey, there's Abraham. He says Candace joins the apostate church. Yes. I mean, golly. And so I don't know if you were here, if you caught the beginning of the show, Abraham, but I was saying how I just feel like my content is needed. Like I feel like my voice is needed in the sphere of conservatism, or just the modern day right, because we have so many people, we have all these talking heads, and none of them are getting really at the heart of the issue. Like all of our most based, all of our most, really stomped down conservative people are all Catholic. And it's like, these people are not right. These people do not have the truth. And so, of course, when they're in a cult, when they're in a fake religion, that's going to skew some of the things that they say. And so, and like my like last straw before I decided like I have to start making content was Allie Beth Stuckey, who I don't know if y'all watch, but she's an evangelical. She's a Protestant, that's what she claims. And she's Baptist, but she's Reformed Baptist, and she's Calvinist. I was like, is this really the best we could do? We are up a creek, folks. Abraham says, yeah, both Knowles and Walsh from the DW are both Catholics. As a major, I used to listen to them. Me too. I used to be way in the trenches with DW. I used to love them. Like the summer of 22, I think it had to be, when What is a Woman came out. Like I had been watching Matt Walsh like more and more up until that time. Like I had really gotten on like a Matt Walsh like fix. And then he dropped What is a Woman? And I got the all access, like full top tier membership at the Daily Wire. And I was watching all of their stuff. I was watching Michael Knowles live, first thing in the morning. I was watching Matt Walsh every day. I was tuning into his backstages. I was watching, I don't think Candace was up there yet. I never really liked Ben Shapiro. I wasn't watching him, but I was watching all their special stuff, like their stuff that they were doing with Jordan Peterson, not his show, but I was like watching Logos and Literacy. I watched the Terror on the Prairie, that Western they made. Like I was watching all their stuff. I was so into the Daily Wire. I thought, oh man, they are so cool. And like once I found out that Matt Walsh was Catholic, that really turned me off to him. But I was like, oh well, he's still pretty based. He's still, a broken clock is right twice a day. And I kept trying to like reconcile the two in my mind. And eventually it just like, because at the end of the day, like we cannot see, like I'm fighting against this attitude of, oh, they're just like us, they're still Christians. It's just that, they're a different denomination of Christian, or like I'm actively trying to fight against that attitude of just thinking that Catholics are okay. Like I want people to have the same kind of vitriol or the same kind of like, get the same ick from Catholics that they get from like Mormons or Muslims, or people that they just know, like these people are not Christians. And so I just felt like it was really me doing a disservice to myself, and I wasn't being genuine to my beliefs and what I stand on my platform by sitting and just eating up Matt Walsh and Michael Knowles all day. It's like, why am I sitting here just like, trying to glean wisdom at the feet of these Catholics, when at the end of the day, they're wrong. Like they just have a very fundamental misrepresentation of the world, and we just don't align on that. It's like, would I be comfortable with sitting and paying money and just like absorbing all this content if they were Muslims? Like if I saw some Muslim who was based, who had a really good marriage and had a bunch of kids and said stuff that was mostly right most of the time, like would I be okay with that? Would I sit and I absorb all of that? No, I wouldn't. Because the fact that they're a Muslim would just be too much for me. And so the fact that they're Catholic needs to be too much for me. And so I had to wean myself off of that. And so, man, I was holding out hope for Candace. And I knew, I mean, I was disappointed, but not shocked when she made that post, because it makes sense that she would become Catholic because her husband is Catholic. And she said on multiple occasions that, oh, we're raising our kids and they're getting baptized and they're getting, canonized or whatever they do in the Catholicism with their kids, and they were doing all that stuff. She was allowing all that stuff to happen with her kids. And so, and she had like said before, like she thinks that the family should be behind the husband's religion. And so yeah, like not surprising, but very disappointing, because I was kind of hoping that, she would be able to convert her husband. But she said something one time that made me realize that she's right on a lot of things. She's very knowledgeable when it comes to a lot of things, but religion is not her strong suit. And so it makes sense that she was able to get snowed by these Catholics, because she said that, I'm a Protestant and my husband's a Catholic, and I don't really agree with a lot of things that they teach. But when I talked to my husband about it, he says, well, do you think that there were no Christians for 1,500 years until the Protestant Reformation? Or I think the question was like, do you think that nobody went to heaven for 1,500 years before the Protestant Reformation? And she was like, well, no, I don't think that. And I just haven't been able to reconcile that in my mind. Hello? Oh, is anybody home? Of course, people went to heaven before the Protestant Reformation, because the truth is not held by the Protestants. The truth is held by Christians who have gone by different names and been small groups. I mean, this is just showing her very basic misunderstanding of the Bible. This is just showing that she is not reading the Bible. She's not reading the right Bible, that she's reading a Bible. Because there have always been, what is it? Here I go about to butcher the verse. But I think it's like there have always been like 7,000 prophets who have not bowed the knee to Baal. There have always been people. There have always been a righteous remnant. There's never going to be a time when there's no actual Christians. But have they ever been the majority? Have they ever been the primary group? Of course not. Because narrow is the way and straight is the way that leads to life, and broad is the way that leads to death. And so if Catholicism, before the Protestant Reformation was the number one thing, if that was the big thing, then you should already know off rip that was never right, because Christianity, what the Bible talks about Christianity, was never going to be the popular thing. And so I'm like, girl, like, come on. So y'all be sure to like and subscribe and share the videos, because we gotta boost up the channel, because I gotta get talk to these people. One goal of my channel is to be able to sit down in studio or do a video chat with some of these these heavy hitters on the right, and start converting some of these people, because we have to unshackle the right from Catholicism, because Catholicism has it as a headlock. I mean, it's really sad. And then, like I was saying earlier about Allie Beth Stuckey, like she'll go toe to toe with the Catholics, but I don't feel like she asked the right questions. I don't feel like she actually, like, she knows that they're not right, but she doesn't know that they're not right for the right reasons. And I'll talk about that later on. I'll do some reviews of talks that she's done with Catholics, because she actually sat down with Candace Owens' husband one time and did a 2-hour debate with him, which was, I didn't finish it. It was kind of hard to watch. But so there was that. And so, yeah. And so, at the end of the day, people who, maybe haven't heard me talk about why I just cannot stand Catholicism so much, they might be like, well, Virginia, what's the problem? We're all kind of the same. But at the end of the day, Christianity and Catholicism are not the same. They've never been the same. They never will be the same, because Catholicism teaches a works-based salvation. Now, don't let your local Catholic, or don't let, the priest that down the street convince you otherwise and say that, oh, we believe that, it's by faith alone, because that was one of the major tenets of the Protestant Reformation, was sola fide, was faith alone. And so Catholics do not teach faith alone. They teach that, faith is something that is God, that, you get from God because you've done enough good works, and that you have to, earn a spot in heaven. And if you don't do enough good stuff, then you have to go to purgatory. And, and if you saw that debate that I did with that Catholic guy, then you'll know that, see, these Catholics, they're sometimes very slippery. And because it's not like a one specific thing that they all teach, Like, you can go to a Catholic church in the Philippines and hear some very different things than you'll hear from a Catholic church in like Belgium. It's not one complete, utterly centralized thing that they teach. And so you might have a Catholic who will give lip service to faith alone. You might have a Catholic who will say like, oh yeah, you don't work your way to heaven. They might think that and say that, even though when you start digging deeper, you'll find that they don't believe that all you have to do is believe. So there are some like that who think that they believe by faith alone, and then you have other ones that will just completely be objectively say like, of course it's not by faith alone because faith without works is dead, and start parroting that off. Um, and so they're slippery in that way. And so it's, you might, and then there's orthodoxy, which is just another branch of Catholicism. And so they have some different beliefs as well, but it's all, at the end of the day, it all boils down to works. You'll never meet a Catholic who says that I believe on Christ. That's my only entrance into heaven. I can do, I can live whatever kind of life I want to live. My actions have no bearing on my salvation. As soon as I die, I'm going to go straight into the arms of Christ. Only because I believe. My actions have no bearing. My actions don't mean anything. Salvation is gained by faith alone in Jesus Christ alone. You'll never meet a Catholic who says that, or and truly believes that, because they don't teach that. And of course they don't teach that, because it's not true Christianity. It's not the true religion. And so for Candace Owens to come out and say this and to be like this, it's just very, very disheartening. And then just to touch on it briefly, Russell Brand, he got baptized maybe like 2-3 weeks ago, I think. Yeah, and so it's funny because I remember Russell Brand from when I was a kid, on like middle school, watching him. Like, he had this movie called Get Him to the Greek with Jonah Hill and like P. Diddy. And one of my brothers, they really like that movie. And so of course, when you're a kid, you want to watch everything and do everything that your siblings do. And so I saw that movie like 4 times. And it's a really silly movie. It's very raunchy. I don't recommend it. But once I started to hear, that, oh, Russell Brand, he's on the right, I guess you could say that, that he's gone based or whatever, and that he was doing his YouTube channel and pushing back against the vaccine and all that stuff. Like, it was really surprising me, because I wasn't keeping up with him. Pretty much once he split from Katy Perry, that was when I kind of like stopped keeping updates and getting updates with him. But I do follow him on YouTube now, and I like to watch some of his things because he's kind of interesting to hear him talk about stuff like this. But he had a take on the Candace Owens things, and he was saying like, oh yeah, I think it makes sense that people are, returning to religion and returning to the church. Whenever somebody says that, that's a red flag, because there is no the church. And he was saying like, yeah, I've been thinking about getting baptized, and I've been thinking about becoming a Christian. And I was like, well, those are 2 separate things. So which one have you been thinking about first? And so he talked about how he was going to get baptized. And I don't know what denomination he's a part of. I didn't catch that. I saw the video where he talked about him getting baptized, but he didn't say, what sect, because, most Roman Catholics, they don't believe in dunking. And obviously he got dunked because he went to a big body of water. So maybe he's more Orthodox, or, what have you. But he got submerged. So he got rightfully baptized, but I don't think he actually knows what salvation is. I think that he thinks that baptism is a part of it. So he's not really saved. If I, me just looking at it from the information that I have, hearing him talk for himself about what he thinks Christianity is and what he thinks baptism did for him, I don't think that he's actually saved. So we should pray for him as well as Candace Owens. But yeah, so that's what's been going on. And man, like, and I also talked about this in my my soul winning at the Virginia March for Life video, how like Catholicism just has like a death grip on the right. And it wasn't always like this, but just as of late. And it makes sense, that people, they're attracted to results. And the evangelicals, the Protestants, a lot of the westernized evangelicals, they just really dropped the ball when it came to religion. They've really dropped the ball when it came to the family. That's a major thing. A lot of these Protestant churches, a lot of these non-denom or Baptist churches, I've heard Pearl Davis say that, they worship women, not God. And that's quite a damning accusation, but it's pretty true in a lot of instances. A lot of these churches, they're not teaching the truth. They're not staying hard. They're not being firm on the family. They're not teaching that God hates divorce. They're not teaching that adultery should be punishable by death. They're not teaching that abortion is murder. They're not teaching that homosexuality is evil. They're not being hard on these social issues, and a lot of Catholic churches are. And so it makes sense that as our world has become crazier and crazier, that people are being drawn to the results and being drawn to the counterculture, which is a lot of Catholic churches, um, which is actually what we're seeing on the opposite end of the pendulum, which is what's been going on with these NIFB churches. So if you're NIFB, then of course that there's just been a skyrocketing in demand for these churches. It started off with like Steven Anderson and Roger Jimenez in like 2006 and 2007. But now, there's an NIFB church coming to a town near you, it seems like. They're just churning out these pastors because the demand is there. Their churches are filling up. Roger Jimenez, for the Red Hot Preaching Conference this year, he's about to unveil his new church building that's like twice as big or something, or 3 times as big. And God bless it, because people, they're being attracted to results, and these churches are effective. These families in these churches are staying together. These kids in these churches are not totally nuts. And so, yeah, but these are, the NIFB, they're constantly being shut down and being censored and silenced. So we're a small movement right now, but I do hope that we will get bigger, and we might get a person on the right who's NIFB. And so, yeah, because this unholy alliance that the right has with Catholicism, it just irks my Baptist soul to no end. But yeah, so there's that. And so next topic for the evening is this whole man versus bear thing that's been going on. And I actually did a video of this with my husband, where I asked him the question, because sometimes my husband would give me these crazy answers, and he did not disappoint this time either. And it was like right before bed, and so he might have been a little delirious, but I asked him, I was like, would you rather be in the woods with a man or a bear? And he was like, what? Like, I don't know. And I was like, would you rather have me in the woods with a man or a bear? And he was like, I don't know, a bear. And I was like, what? And he was like, well, a man could eat you. And I was like, what? And so he eventually came around to the right answer. And he was like, oh, yeah, of course, a man could help you. And I'm like, right, of course. And so, yeah, this whole man versus bear thing, I just think that this is just such blatant misandry. And as someone who really has a soft spot for men, someone who really cares about the plight of men, I don't understand. Like, another thing is that, a little off topic, but, still kind of in the same wheelhouse of people who are being openly and just proudly discriminated against is white people. I believe that we are living in a society that hates white people openly and proudly. And I posted this one time on this, I made a comment on this post where this woman, she had like, I don't know, she had like these really dumb looking braids. They were like feed-in braids. They're like box braids, and they're like braids that Black women usually wear. And they look dumb on her. But everybody was like in the comments saying how like, oh, she's a culture vulture, she's, taking from Black culture and all this stuff. And I said how the anti-whiteism is so real in this comment section. And it was like white people who came at me and were like, what's anti-whiteism? Like, is anti-whiteism in the room with us? And I'm like, how are you as a white person so blinded to the fact that your people and your culture is constantly being assaulted and demeaned in every chance that people get? And so, and like this whole man versus bear thing, like, it's just like another assault against men for no reason. It's like, why are men always catching these strays for no reason? It's like so unprovoked. It's so unnecessary. Like, and it's just, and at the end of the day, you feel like it has to be a lie, like these women, because people, it's been proven that people will act differently when there's a camera in front of them. Like, that's just, people, they'll say like, this is why there's no such thing as reality shows. Is because it is a fact that people will act differently. They'll say different things when they know that they're being recorded. And so, at risk of sounding like a pick-me, I'm sure a lot of these women who were asked, would you rather be in the woods with a man or a bear? They were like, oh, I want to be the bear, because they don't want to, sound like they want a man. God forbid you feel like you need a man. What is this? The 1920s? So, they want to say that because it sounds trendy. It sounds like the right thing to say. And it's nonsense. And so it's just, I feel so bad for these men and these pick-me men who are up here, and they're like, of course a woman would want to be with a bear in the woods because men are scary, and men, they're going to do things to you, and they're going to touch you and fondle you and all this stuff. it's like, do these people think at all? I mean, have you people been so brainwashed and so diluted with the fluoride in your water that you've completely forgotten that bears are wild animals? Like, have you been so deluded by Ringling Brothers that you think that a bear is going to come up to you and play patty cake? I mean, friends, we're talking about the most dangerous man who ever lived. You're like comparing a bear to someone like Jack the Ripper or Ted Bundy. I mean, put me in the woods with Bundy any day. I mean, what are we talking about? It's so far out of the realm of reason and logic. It's just so sad. And I just and for someone like me, I really just don't get it, because I've had pretty much nothing but good experiences with men for most of my life. Like I've said before, I was raised by my dad. I have 3 older brothers. And like I said before, I've never dated a bozo. All the men I've ever dated were wonderful. And now I'm married to somebody who's wonderful. And I'm just like, I just feel bad. I feel really bad. I understand the plight of men. I'm a constant intaker of like red pill content and hearing about how men, they struggle with things and they're struggling with the dating market. And, honestly, if I wasn't a Christian, I wouldn't advocate for men to get married. Because if it's not because of, God's command for us to get married, then what is there offered to men in marriage nowadays? I mean, what are you actually expecting to get? So, I get it. I totally hear, men that are like, I'm just pulling out of the dating market. I'm not interested. I'm not even going to bother trying to go and be a passport bro and bring some woman over here because she could become westernized and still destroy me. And so it's just not worth it. And I get that. And like, when you see this stuff like this, like, oh, I'd rather be in the woods with a bear than a man. And it's like, what? And then they bring up these straw man arguments like, oh, well, bears only killed like, 16 people last year and men have done way more than that. And it's like, well, obviously there's more man to woman contact going on every day than there is a bear to woman contact or bear to person contact. Bears aren't everywhere around us. You don't have to see a bear every day. I mean, I don't remember the last time I ever saw a bear, if I've ever seen a bear in real life. And so to say that, oh, bears don't kill nearly as many people is ridiculous. And yeah, I mean, it's just really sad. It's just really showing the sign of the times and how, women, it's just open. It's okay. It's celebrated. It's paraded. People were talking about this on local news channels about how, oh, it's so cute and funny, this man versus bear thing. About, would you rather be in the woods with a man or a bear? And men are scary and men are dangerous. And it makes sense. It's really a toss up. I don't know. It depends. Is the man a rapist? Is the man a murderer? Or is the bear trained? Like, no, it's not a toss up. It's ridiculous. It's like saying I would rather be in the woods with a lion or a wolf versus a man. Like, even with the scariest man you could think of, I still have better chances of surviving than with a wild animal. I mean, what are these people smoking? I mean, honestly, what are you people on? Like, Ozempic really has y'all tied up in knots because this is out of control. And so, yeah, that's all I wanted to say is that misandry is alive and well in the West. Because I think the test originally started in the UK. That's what it sounded like from the women that were being interviewed. So it's not just America, it's a Western problem. The hatred of men is alive and well. And so I know it's not really what I planned out for, but it's the way that it's shaken out is that my audience is predominantly men. And so I feel for you guys. I'm here. I'm in the trenches with you. I care about you guys. And so I hate to see all this insanity ensue. And so next topic for the evening. So the last thing that I did before I went totally radio silent was that I was on a debate with This Might Be Risky or DJ Hamp, however you might be familiar with his channel. I was up there, and that was like, that had to be at least a month ago now. And I was up there, and he was having a debate set up where it was, try to prove the Hebrew Israelites wrong. And so DJ Hamp, he's a Hebrew Israelite, as I'm sure, if you're familiar with DJ Hamp, then you already know that because he's not shy about that. And he brought up this deacon who was the main person. And then he had a few other of his cronies up there who were also defending the faith. And just it was like an open panel for anybody who wanted to call in. And he told me about it. Like he told me about it before he even posted about it because he knew I was going to want to come. And I was, still very sick at that point. It was probably in one of my peak. I was really starting to peak in how bad I was feeling. And I was like, oh man, like I gotta go up there. And so I really tried to pull myself together and get up there. And I don't know how well I did. I don't know how good of form I had. When it comes to things like that, it's like you really need time to flesh out points and go back and forth. And it was a full panel. A bunch of people chimed in, and even people who weren't like on one side or the other, just people who wanted to get up there and see what all the commotion was about, were up there. And so I went first. I was the first person to go and talk and ask questions. And what I will say about the Hebrew Israelites is something that I also find with Jehovah's Witnesses, which is that they are very well read in their content and in their in the things that they are saying. And so like it's very easy. Like if you're like you could be a legitimate Christian and like know salvation and know the truth, but you could get stumped by a Jehovah's Witness if they come to your door and you're thinking like, oh, well, I'm going to try to get them saved and evangelize to them and teach them the gospel. But it's just like these people there, they do a lot of actual like teaching and training, which is another really big problem with the evangelical church in the West, is that they don't do teaching and training like they're supposed to because they feel like that's something that's outsourced to Bible colleges. And so you'll go to church your whole life and not learn about how to actually how to go step by step and soul win or how to actually defend the faith. Like they won't teach you like apologetics at church because they feel like that's something different. Like that's not what church is for some reason. When church is supposed to be like, fully edifying to the saint, and so I should be able to get all my information and all my, sword sharpening, if you will, from church. I shouldn't have to be forced to go to Bible college to do that. And so a lot of churches really, really drop the ball in that area. And so there are a lot of Christians who have a very loose grasp on the truth and they know it just enough for them to have it, but they can't teach it to other people. Byzantine, good to see you. Early Christian saints studied Plato, Socrates, and other early philosophers. Yeah. I'm sure they did, and that makes sense. Because those guys, I've heard those names, but I don't know a whole lot about what they taught. Of course, like platonic relationships is from Plato. That was like a term that he coined or an idea that he coined. But yeah, it makes sense. Like, these were the great thinkers of the day. And so Christianity is a thinking man's religion, should be. And so, it makes sense that they would want to study them. So yeah, it's really disappointing that churches don't do a better job of actually training the saints and just leaving that to outsource. And so like there are Christians, and I was in this boat before as well. The first time I met a girl who was openly Jehovah's Witness was when I was in the 11th grade. And she, of course, didn't believe that Jesus was God. And I knew that Jesus was God, but I didn't know how to properly express that to her. Like I didn't know what verses to go to and like how to totally just like destroy her with facts and logic. Like I didn't know the verses. Like I didn't know about 1 John 5:7. I didn't know about John 8:58, where Jesus is talking to the Pharisees and says that before Abraham was, I am. I didn't know about that verse. I didn't know about how to cross-reference verses like from the Old Testament where it'll say something about God, it'll say something about the Lord, and then in the New Testament it'll reference that verse, but it'll be talking about Jesus. So who is Jesus not that guy? Like how in I believe it's Isaiah, it talks about how there will be one who cries out in the wilderness, who will prepare the way of the Lord, prepare the way of God, and then in the New Testament, John the Baptist is the one who prepares the way of the Lord. And that's Jesus that he's speaking of. And in the Old Testament, it says that person that he's preparing the way of is God. So who is Jesus? I didn't have all that information. I didn't have that knowledge. I had to seek that out outside of church, um, which is a shame. And many contemporary Orthodox Christians try to study both philosophy and theology. Um, okay, because I recently discovered that Andrew Wilson from that YouTube channel, The Crucible, he's Orthodox, and he's real big into like philosophy and theology, I believe. So yeah, that's a good practice. I think that more Christians should try to actually be well versed in Christianity. Not necessarily for debate purposes but it's good to know what you believe, and so that way when someone comes to you and wants to talk to you about the faith, you can actually give a cohesive answer. You can give a logical answer. And so, and I mean, but at the end of the day, winning a debate is not the end goal. About seeing like being proven right at that instance. You should be trying to win people's souls. And so if you come at it with earnest, if you come at it with the right attitude, that's going to go a lot further than necessarily having all the right answers right at that moment. I followed the Crucible for years, but now the OG is Jay Dreyer. I'm not familiar with Jay Dreyer. I'm gonna have to look him up. Does he do debates too, or is he just more like a sit down, talk to the camera, theological kind of person? I'm honestly really sick of Andrew Wilson. I'm really sick of seeing him on the Whatever podcast. It seems like he's up there every single week now. Like, okay, he does both, is what he's saying. Yeah, like, get somebody new up there for Pete's sake. I mean, he's been up there for like months now. I'm so sick of seeing this dude's face. But anyways, but yeah, what was I saying? Oh yeah. And so, we should want to educate ourselves about our faith so that way we can get people saved. And that's why I went up there. That's why I do any debate that I do. Because right before that, I did a debate with a Muslim girl on Chaotic's channel. And if you haven't seen that, then you're really missing out. You guys had 2 months to catch up on my content. So you should know more about me than I do by now after seeing all my stuff. And so, yeah, if you missed that, then definitely be sure to tune into that because that was really good. I thought that was very fruitful. And it's kind of funny. During that debate, like the Muslim girl that I was talking to, it looked like she was in black and white. I don't know why that is. But if you go, like, if you've watched it, you'll know what I'm talking about. But it looks like she's in black and white and like Chaotic and I are in color. I don't know why. But that just kind of made me chuckle. But yeah, we should want to educate ourselves. There's a verse that says, let me pull it up so you don't have to take my word for it. Give an answer to, is that right? We should be, okay, maybe that's not right. Okay, I need to look this up. We should be able to give an answer to any man. Okay, let's see here. Okay, that's 1 Peter 3:15. Let's see here. Okay, so 1 Peter 3:15 says, "But sanctify the Lord God in your hearts, and be ready always to give an answer to every man that asketh you a reason of the hope that is in you with meekness and fear." And so, yeah, I do these debates not because like I just, love debate, because that's a characteristic of a reprobate. But I just want to get my information out there. And then debates are what's trendy. Debates are what people kind of flock to. But it's never my goal to just like embarrass somebody or make someone look like an idiot. But I do want to be able to successfully show them that their beliefs are wrong and mine are right. And so that's a fine line to walk. Oh, good grief. I'm not showing it again. Okay. Anyways, but so yeah, and so I did those 2 debates. Those were like the last 2 things that I did before I just completely had to shut everything down and like just go on like completely radio silence because I was feeling so bad. But yeah, and so I think the Muslim debate went pretty well. I mean, I feel like it went well. I feel like I represented myself well. I feel like I represented the faith well. One thing that a lot of people said to give me feedback was that, I have a really calm disposition. I'm really good at keeping my composure. It's fun to see, sometimes people fly off the handle and go crazy. But people, they do like that about me. And I think that that is important because I'm a woman and, we might get accustomed to seeing people who, debate who are men and, men and women are different. Okay. And all God's people said amen. And so, you might see a man and he'll be more aggressive in his debate tactics, and he'll be more on the offense. And I always try to try to have meekness and be quiet of spirit. And so I really try to be mindful of that when I do debate people and when I talk to people. It's not always that I manage to do that. Sometimes I feel like I do lose my cool a little bit. It riles me up when people start bad mouthing my Lord and Savior. But I do think that's important as a woman, that when I talk to people that I especially use, salt with my words, and that I'm careful to answer everybody. I think that's in 1 Corinthians, is that, careful to answer a man, redeeming the time because the days are evil. I do try to do that, especially. And so I think that's always something that goes well in my favor. But yeah, so I think the Muslim one went well. I don't think that the Hebrew Israelite one went as well as I would hope that it would. He kind of like tied me up a little bit, and then they'll say things like, one thing that they'll say is so one thing that Risky said at the beginning of the about the stream was that, we have to talk about line upon line and precept upon precept. And, we can go from the Old Testament to the New Testament. And if it doesn't jive with the Old Testament, then, there's usually an issue. And I generally agree with that. If I'm reading something in the New Testament that completely contradicts something in the Old Testament, then, there's reason for scrutiny there. But so the deacon guy, he came up there and, of course, they don't believe that Jesus is God, and that's a problem. And so I was, oh no, what were we talking about? I think it was about salvation being by faith alone. And so this guy, he was like, well, your Jesus said that you have to obey the commandments in order to be saved. And I said, okay, well, Romans, I don't know what verses I picked up, 3:28 or something, says that we know that we are not saved by the deeds of the law. So what? And he was like, oh, well, that was just Paul. As if Paul's words are not inspired like the rest of the Bible. What do you mean? You can't just toss out certain parts of the Bible and say oh, we're gonna stand on line upon line and precept upon precept. But what Paul says doesn't matter. And then they try to say that, oh, well, we need to be doing animal sacrifices because your boy Paul, he did an animal sacrifice. And I had never heard that before. And so I had heard Risky say that a couple times. And I was like, where is he getting that from? I've never heard that. And I looked up the part in the Bible that says that Paul did that. And it just blew me away, because that story is about how we should not compromise and that we should not fold to people around us, because Paul lied when he did that. And so I'll probably talk about that fully in another stream. But I mean, that whole scenario where Paul did that, where he gave that animal sacrifice, it was because James and the Pharisees around him pressured him into doing it. They pressured him into lying, because not only did he do an animal sacrifice, but he shaved his head as if he had just gotten done with a Nazarene vow, and he hadn't. Okay, it was a fraud. He was putting on an act to try to please these people, and you know where that got him? It almost got him stoned. Okay, they weren't pleased with it. It didn't pacify them. It didn't satiate them. So he did this. He lied, to the people. And went against his own beliefs and his own convictions, and it got him nowhere. And so when I actually read that and studied that, I was like, this is more proof that we should not be doing it. And so, at another time, I'll probably do a stream about the Hebrew Israelites and why that's not the right religion, and why we as especially Black people need to stay on Christianity. And because a lot of Black people, they're it's trendy to, join the Nation of Islam, or join Islam, or be a Hebrew Israelite and be a part of a religion that's pro-Black. That's why they have the AME church, the African Methodist Episcopalian. Why do I need to go to a church that's African? Why do I need to be in a church that's predominantly Black people? What does that do for me? But I feel like we as Black people, we often fall into that trap of being Black first, or thinking that our race comes first, which is really bad. Um, a lot of Black people, they see a lot of identity in their race, and that's unfortunate, because it's meaningless. The color of our skin has no bearing. It's worthless. It doesn't mean anything. If you woke up tomorrow and you were white, or if you woke up tomorrow and you were Asian, would your life really change that much? I mean, mine wouldn't. I mean, if anything, it'd be a little bit easier because my hair would be easier to deal with. But that's for another story. But yeah, so Black people, we often fall into this trap of wanting to be a part of a religion or do things that are catered to Blackness, and we have to get out of that. We have to get away from that. And so I'll probably do a stream about that at some point, about Black people getting off the mental plantation of thinking that we need a religion that caters to Blackness, and just get on whatever's true. And I don't care if Christianity was given to us by the slave masters. It's true. It's the right religion. And that's what we need to be on. And so, yeah. So there's that. But yeah, so I just want to talk about those debates that I did. If you haven't seen those, then check those out. The Hebrew Israelite one is really long. But I'm only up there for like a half an hour or 45 minutes, I think. So if you're just watching it for me, then I'm not up there the whole time. I come back near the end, but I don't really say anything because I came up there to talk some more and like bring back some more verses for them to explain. But they ended up getting swallowed up in a conversation about whether or not it's okay for Hebrew Israelites to smoke weed. And it was just totally meaningless and a waste of my time. So I left. So if you want to watch that, then I'm only up there for like the first, hour or so. So you can check that out. And then check out the Muslim debate that I did on CT's channel. That was really good, I felt like. But yeah, I wanted to, oh man, that reminds me. My friend Ernie, shout out to Ernie, the Baptist. That's not his username, Ernie the Baptist, but he told me about something. So in the Muslim debate that I did, I mentioned something about being of age and what it means to be of age. And he gave me a friendly rebuke because he felt like I was kind of off base on it. And so what I said was that in the passage about what it means to be a woman is that you have to be past the flower of your age. And what I understood that verse to mean was that the flower of the age is your it's like your puberty. And so when a woman is past puberty, what are you talking about? Don't come up here and just start saying outlandish stuff and start derailing the show. 777 is not dead. Don't even come up here. But anyways, what was I talking about? Oh yes, the flower of her age. And so I was saying that what I understood that verse to mean was that when a woman is past the flower of her age, that means that she is past puberty. And I was using that in context to the fact that Muslims, of course, it's a pro PDF file religion. Objectively speaking, they are no strangers to marrying children, and that's something that they're into. That's something that they support. And the girl I was debating, she was saying how, Aisha, she was 9, but that was just kind of the thing back then. That was just what people did, and it's okay. And she was like, well, Mary was probably only like 12 or 13. And I said, no, that's not right. I have no reason to believe that. Just because some Catholic theologian said that, from whatever, like, I'm not gonna get my information about Bible characters or about Bible events from outside the Bible, And so the Bible doesn't say how old she was, and so therefore it's up to interpretation. But I believe that from that verse, it obviously had to mean that she was past puberty. And so that's what I was saying. And then my friend Ernie, he wanted to give me this another perspective on that verse. And he was saying that he believes that verse is saying that past the flower of her age doesn't mean her period, but it means that it's comparing her to an actual flower, which makes sense. And saying that when a woman is in full bloom, that means that she's fully grown. So when a woman is fully ripe, when a woman is fully bloomed, that's when she is a woman. And I was like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. And so I had never heard that interpretation before. And so he gave that to me. And so I just wanted to bring that up and mention that because he mentioned that to me. That was back in April. And so, yeah, because I always, just because I have an interpretation, just because I have a view on a verse doesn't make it the right interpretation. Okay. I am very much fallible. If you've been here for any amount of time, as you'll know, when God giveth, future baby Ginny, he taketh another away. Good grief. Oh, okay. And so yeah, I just want to bring that up because he mentioned that to me, and I thought that was good. I thought that was a very good message that he had, because I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. I could be wrong on that, so I wanted to just bring that up as well. But at the end of the day, whether it's 16 or 15 at the very youngest, we're not talking about people who are 9 and 12 years old. Okay, that's never been acceptable. That's always been filthy, and God has never approved of marrying off literal children. So there's that. So I wanted to mention that. And so, yeah, I wanted to touch on those debates. And I have a lot of people I need to get back to about going on their channels. Because Mo Love, if you're watching this, I was not avoiding you. I was not ducking you. I do want to be on your channel. But I was so sick. I was like completely just out of it. So girl, whenever you, I'll message you on Discord and we can reschedule me going up there and we can make it happen. So there's that. And then lastly, not lastly, actually, second to lastly, is the Fresh and Fit fiasco, which I know for a fact you people are aware of because this was everywhere. About how Fresh CEO of Fresh and Fit, the podcast, he got this, woman pregnant, whether she's a prostitute, escort, bottle girl, model, whatever, he got this woman pregnant who had no business being anybody's mother. And and so they had this whole big debacle with it. People are now saying that she was probably never pregnant. She got the baby deleted, which of course is horrible. And they had this whole public, breakdown of their relationship. And one thing that I want to say about this, because there are a couple things about this that weren't being highly publicized and weren't being like the main talking points, which is that, for one, shout out to Fit. So shout out to Myron, because he really stood by his friend. And that's something I've noticed about him. I don't really watch Fresh and Fit religiously. I just pop in there here and there. But one thing that I have noticed is that Myron stands by his friends. And, there have been times where other people have been, caught in the crosshairs of a controversy, and Myron stands by his friends, and his friends stand by him. Because one time, DJ Academics was on some podcasts, and they were like clowning Fresh and Fit, saying like, "Oh, do Fresh and Fit even still have a podcast? Are they even still on YouTube?" And he was like, "Yeah, like they're doing well. Like, what you mean?" Like, he was defending his friends. And so I just love that, because I've had so many, I don't know how so many, but I've had people in my life who I thought were really good friends, who I would consider best friends even. And I did not get that same courtesy. It seemed like they were looking for a reason to get rid of me or to get out of my life. And so, of course, Fresh and Fit, they're controversial people, as I'm, obviously, with what they talk about. And, I just respect that. I think that that's great, that they stand by their friends. That's such a good quality to have, is stick-to-itiveness and grit and follow through with your friends, because, you have a spouse, and of course you're supposed to stick by your spouse through thick and thin. But, having a spouse, you want to have other people that you can talk to and other people you can confide in, and having good, loyal friends is such a blessing from God. And I'm in a season of life right now where I'm like trying to get new friends and trying to build new friends, because it's kind of hard to build friends when you stay at home and you're a stay-at-home wife. So you don't have like coworkers that you're seeing on a regular basis, and you don't have classmates that you're seeing on a regular basis. So, I see you guys every Friday. And so a lot of you, I've gotten a lot of really cute relationships from me doing stuff online. I have a new friend that I've been talking to. I told you, the one that made my intro and my outro. And she's really cool. I've been talking to her a lot. The lady Wendy, who does my thumbnails usually, she's really cool. We've built a really nice friendship, I feel like. And so, I'm in a season of life right now where I'm trying to build new friendships and trying to cultivate new friendships. When my husband and I went to the amusement park yesterday, I met a new woman, his friend's girlfriend, and she seems great. So hopefully that's a new relationship. Because it's hard to make friends when you're an adult. It's more active. And I was just listening to a podcast about that today. How people in their 20s, it's kind of like the loneliest decade of your life, because there's a lot of change and ebbing and flowing in your life, and you're like, we're probably going to move, or we're definitely going to move. We just don't know when. Probably sometime near the end of the summer, beginning of the fall. And so we'll be moving 45 minutes away from where we are now. So we're going to have new friends again and, meet new people. And so being in your 20s is a very transitory time in your life. And so it's hard to make friends and keep friends because, of course, one of the main things about friends is that you see them regularly. And so that's hard when, you're moving and going places and, you're just changing a lot in life. And so, oh my goodness. Byzantine, he says, that's facts. You got to ride for your real friends, even if in private you disagree with them. Yeah. And I think that, there's limits to it, of course. If your friend does something totally egregious, then they might be worthy of an open rebuke. But I think that more often than not, people should be standing by their friends. EAE says, friends are too much work. Ain't nobody trying to be there for someone all the time. We busy. EAE, I'm convinced that you're a curmudgeon and that you just like to be a stick in the mud, which is funny because I feel like you'd be a very interesting, fun person to be around in real life if you're anything like who you are online. But yeah, having friends is work. I have my longest running friend. We've been friends since 8th grade, and I never see her because all she does is work. And so I just try to send her memes on Instagram and text her every so often and keep our friendship alive. So it is a lot of work to keep friends. But yeah, and so that was number one thing I wanted to say about the fresh and fit scenario is that really big kudos to Fit, so Myron, for standing by his friend, even though when he was being an idiot, because there's a lot of speculation in the situation. But what we know for a fact is that he had unprotected sex with a whore, which is never a good idea. And so he admitted to that. That's what we know for a fact. And so even though his friend was out there being a bonehead, he stood by him because, all the other stuff that was said afterwards was not true and, proven to be salacious. And he stood by him. So, really good job on that. And then the next thing that I wanted to say about that is that, once again, this goes back to, we live in a society that hates men. We live in a society that does not value men. And so as a woman, my whole growing up, my whole upbringing, I was taught, especially being religious, being in a religious family, I was taught that you should not have sex before marriage because sex is valuable. Your body is valuable. Your body is a temple. Your body is a prize. Virginity is special. This is something you should preserve for your one husband, or, just a man who, loves you, will take care of you, whatever. This is your body is, you should cherish your body. You should cherish your womb as a woman. These are things that a lot of women hear, most women hear, I think, that you should value your body. But I don't know if men are hearing the same message. And I think that so many men take their seed and take their body for granted, and they don't appreciate it. And they see themselves as meat sacks. And I feel like this is very evident because promiscuity is kind of promoted when it comes to men. Even though what you'll find is that oftentimes women are having more sex than men are. And so most men are not these promiscuous, just runarounds like some women think, I think on average, men have 7 bodies or 4 bodies or something. It's very low, and women usually have more than that. And so, yeah, we men are just constantly being told like, oh, get out there and get these women and try to get as many women as you can and just trying to run through these women. Um, and it doesn't matter because you just want to put notches in your belt or something. And that's what you should do as a man. EAE says that men usually lie about their bodies. Yeah. Yeah, and then so he says that women lie too to make their count lower. Yeah, so women are lying about how few people they've had sex with, while men are lying saying that it's more. And that's a problem because with feminism, it taught women that they should be more like men. It didn't teach women that they should embrace femininity and be more womanly and be more feminine. It taught them to be more like men. And men are taught to not value themselves. And that's why women stopped valuing themselves. And so it's really a shame. And so men should be taught that, your seed is valuable. Don't just go out and spread it to any woman. These women aren't worthy of you. I remember being taught like, just some random guy on the street, just your first boyfriend that you have is not worthy of your body. You hear these words when you're a woman, like worthy, value, treasure, prize. These are terms that are being used to describe the female body, used to being described the womb of the woman. And these are not terms that you often hear when it comes to describing the seed of a man. To describe, the presence of a man, to describe, the resources of a man. And it's a shame. And men are just not taught to value themselves in that way. And it's like, and so someone as successful, someone as valuable, someone who has as many resources as Fresh, whose name is Walter, I believe. Even he didn't realize how valuable his seed was and how important it was for him to be chaste and to not, do his stuff in a whore. And it's a shame. And so more men just need to realize that you are valuable. Your body is valuable. And it's not a flex. It's not a good thing to just go out here and spread your seed to everybody and start producing all these bastard children and think that it's cool and it's awesome to, be a whoremonger. That's what the Bible calls you, is a whoremonger. And have all these concubines and have all these different women, have all these different relationships and just start running through women. Because the richest man who ever lived, King Solomon, had 700 wives and 300 concubines. And boy, oh boy, did he have a world of hurt. And so, you'll never have nearly that many. But, there are a lot of men, and I know men in my own personal life who spread their seed a little bit too indiscriminately, and they're suffering the consequences of that. And and that's not what you want, and I don't want that for you. And so unfortunately she terminated, she got rid of her baby. So even though that situation was toxic and volatile, it would still be better to not kill your child, objectively speaking. But yeah, just men, be more careful, be more wise with your body. If you've never heard it before, then your seed is valuable, because a woman's womb is not valuable if she can't receive seed. And so one can't be valuable without the other. That's just not how that works. And so, yeah, take your body seriously. If you have a low body count, that's a good thing. That is a major flex that you can just, lay your head on your pillow at night and not have to worry about going to jail for missing a child support payment. And, you don't ever have to worry about some woman out here, taking your kid from you, hiding your kid from you. I saw this video yesterday or 2 days ago, something like that, where this woman, she was literally like physically, bodily, like holding her son away from her baby daddy because the dad came to pick up his son for his visitation, and the mom was like, no, like, hiding the son and like keeping the son away and like just physically being a barrier between the dad and the son. And the son was like 9-10 years old, and he was just like standing there like, oh, here mom goes again. And the dad was like, it's, my time started at 6:00 and it's 6:20 and I demand that you give me my son. And she said, I'm not giving you anything until you call the police. And she was like, I'll give you your son when the police come. It's like, why do we have to do all that? And, it's just sad. And so many men have to deal with these crazy women who don't let them see their kids, and then they fight and they spend so much money, and then they stop fighting and they feel like, well, this is an uphill battle. I literally cannot afford to keep doing this. And then so they stop fighting, and then the woman says, "Oh, look at your daddy. He's crap. He didn't care about you. He didn't fight for you." And then they have a bad relationship with their kids, and then it's just a mess. It is just a mess. And a lot of that does happen from marriage as well. But you can mitigate your chances of that happening if you just don't have sex with women who you're not married to. And you'll never end up like that guy in that video, and you'll never end up like Walter. Okay. So men need to take a serious step back and value themselves, and realize that, your body is a temple just as much as a woman's body. So yes. EAE says, "I'm late to the stream. Did you speak on the new video of Diddy going, I could turn her on Cassie?" No, I didn't. I'm just addressing old stuff. So this might be, you said it's a new video. So I haven't even seen that. I'm like not plugged in. If it's not on, like, if Coach Greg Adams didn't talk about it, or Paul Joseph Watson or Mark Dice or something, like, I probably haven't seen it. I was watching a video today about like this big dust up with this TikTok girl who like wanted to get her username from somebody else on Instagram, and was like bullying this girl into like getting her username, like, and that was like a really big thing, and I had just heard about it today. 8 billion people on the planet Earth. I guarantee you my seed is not valuable. That is the wrong attitude, EAE. You know better. Your seed is valuable, because there will never, your bloodline, wants to continue to go on. It's on the front page of CNN. Oh man, yikes. I mean, I don't have any particular feelings toward Diddy. I think that he probably did everything that he's being accused of. He's probably just as filthy and predatory as they say he is. So, hey, lock him up. That's far as I'm concerned. I mean, I've been hearing things through the grapevine about the story. I haven't really been keeping up with it. But yeah, I mean, that guy, I mean, if nothing else, all he's done for like the past 30 years is just pump out garbage music into the Black community. We didn't need any Biggie. We didn't need any Maze. We didn't need was he the one was he the producer of the guy who did Flavor in Your Ear? Or is that somebody else? We don't need Cassie music. We didn't need Danity Kane. This is all just sensual, earthly, devilish music that we could have all gone without. And he had a major role in all of that. So, if he's not a complete predator, then all he is just, a person who pumped out ridiculous music into the world. And so we're better off without him, as far as I'm concerned. But yeah. And so that's what I want to say about the Fresh and Fit thing. Because, I mean, everybody and our mama has already talked about this thing. Like, it's wrapped up now. I don't think anything else of substance can really come from that scenario or come from that story, especially since the baby's no longer, around anymore. So that story seems to be all, tied up in a bow as of right now. But just, from, overall, that whole situation was completely avoidable if he had not been, releasing his seed into a woman that was not his wife. And so, men, please be more vigilant about where you are planting your seeds. And so now our last thing before we get into my personal updates is about Lauren Southern. And so if you're not familiar with Lauren Southern, she is a provocateur, if you will. She's been around for a while. I would say, like, and that's the thing, is that like people keep saying like, oh, Lauren Southern, like, she's a trad wife, or she's a conservative, and it's like, I've been watching Lauren Southern for a while now, for like, years. I was watching her back when she was on Rebel News, and she's never been super far right. Like, she's a libertarian, and so libertarians are not the same as conservatives. And so why she's in the news is that she was married to this guy, and apparently he just divorced her and left her, basically like on the street. And she was saying how, I lived this trad wife lifestyle and it was a nightmare. I hated it. It was terrible. My husband was awful to me. and the trad wife life is a hoax. It's a lie. Well, I took offense to that because I could be considered a trad wife. I don't know. I mean, these terms are kind of subjective. I don't know how trad it is to have a podcast, or I do earn money outside of the home. I like to say that I'm a stay-at-home wife, just not always at my home, because I go to people's houses and stay, a week or two, or over the weekend, at their house and watch their dogs. So I'll do that. That's how I make money outside of YouTube, because I still do pet care. And so, but I'm predominantly, 9 times out of 10, I'm at home taking care of my home. And so I feel like I could be considered a trad wife. And so I'm like, the trad wife life is a lie, is it now? Well, let's see about that. And she wrote this whole lengthy dissertation. Oh, I forgot to put the thing up again. So she wrote this whole lengthy dissertation about how she was living this nightmare lifestyle. Her husband was being mean to her, that she, would cook and clean and just be the perfect little, Susie homemaker. And her husband was just so awful and terrible to her. Now, first thing that I want to say is that, friends, believe none of what you hear and half of what you see. And so this story, we only have one side of the story. We only have her side of the story. And so for people to just take this story and run off with it and say that, oh, see, the trad wife life is a lie. Oh, it's awful being trad. Don't be trad. Remember, ladies, always focus on yourself first and get your bag first, and never rely on a man. Like, okay. Two things can be true at once. Her marriage probably wasn't, wonderful and life-giving and happy, what have you. But to just take this one story, which, I mean, objectively sounds exaggerated. I didn't read it, but I listened to people who read off the whole thing, and they were talking about it. And, it just sounded exaggerated. And so if the story is true, then that's one thing. But we don't have confirmation of the story being true in the first place, because she and her husband's relationship was very private. Because he was like a Secret Service member for Australia or something. Like, he worked in the government, or works in the government. And so I don't think we've ever even seen him publicly. So we have very little information about him. And of course, I doubt he's going to come out and say anything about this. I doubt we're going to get his side of the story. And so just take this and say that, oh, definitively speaking, that, the trad wife life is a lie, and, women need to always have their own money and never submit to a man, is absurd. Because for every failed trad wife story is a positive one, and my marriage, I mean, I don't remember how long she was married. I think she said she was married for like 5 years. So I've only been married for a little over 3 years, but I would say that my trad wife life is a success as of right now. Only time will tell. And so every year that I stay married, I will just build more credibility for myself and for my movement of getting back in the home. That's where I believe women should be. And so there's that. But, so first off, we have to scrutinize whether or not the story is even true. And secondly, since when did Lauren Southern become a trad wife? Like, she's not even a good representation of this lifestyle, because she's never been like alt-right, she's never been very conservative, like super far right, that kind of thing. And like, I don't even think she's religious. So like, when I hear trad wife, when I hear like a trad con, traditional conservative, what I think of is a woman who is very religious, a woman who, is having lots of kids, or at least trying to have lots of kids, makes things from scratch, is a homemaker, is, someone who leans right conservatively, a woman who's just very fundamental, traditional in her ways of thinking and her way of operating. And that was never really Lauren Southern to begin with. And it's like, she did other things, and I stopped keeping up with her as much as I used to, but I used to watch her pretty frequently. And like, she never admitted to being a trad wife. She never admitted to being, like a conservative. She was always a libertarian, and libertarians have lib beliefs. They're kind of like in this weird middle ground of being liberal and Democrat. And so and as far as I know, she still considers herself that. And so why would we use her as some kind of metric for, whether or not the trad life movement is valid or not? So I think that that's a straw man argument to say that, oh, well, it didn't work for Lauren Southern, and she's just like the definition of trad, and she's super trad, and she's super far right, and so, if it didn't work for her, it can't work for anybody. And of course, Lauren Southern is very pretty, and so people were like, oh, this beautiful white woman, she couldn't make it work, so therefore there's no hope for you. And it's like, that's not what being trad is. Being trad is not about being white with blonde hair, or being trad is not about, voting Republican. There's more things that go along with that. And one thing that's definitely not trad is bad mouthing your husband on the internet when the marriage breaks down. And so the fact that she's the kind of woman who would do something like that shows me that there's some cracks in this foundation. And so to use her as this like smoking gun, and I've been seeing this a lot more lately, like, oh, the trad wife to poverty pipeline is real, and all these different trad wives are coming out and saying how, oh, I relied solely on my husband, and then he left me, and now I'm broke and I have nothing. And it's like, I question a lot of these stories, because in today's world, in America, you mean to tell me that you were a trad wife, you were a stay-at-home wife, and your husband left you, and now you have nothing? Since when? That never happens anymore. There are women who make more than their husband, and their husband still ends up having to pay alimony and child support. So what? So a lot of these stories just don't pass a sniff test as far as I'm concerned. There's a lot of people out here faking the funk, and you got to be able to decide, decipher between what's real and what's fake. And this whole Lauren Southern story just, it didn't pass a sniff test for me. And so, yeah. EAE says, you gotta be careful using words that start with TRA. What does that mean? Is that like a YouTube thing? He says, TradCon, whoa, that's a word. Yeah, it's just an abbreviation of traditional conservatives. He also says, I was really hoping UFOs would have visited by now. This was the rave last year. It was all the way last year. Yeah, it was. Oh, snap. Hello, El Cheapo. He says it's his first time in the chat. Oh, yes. Round of applause for you. Thank you for coming to a Mrs. Ginny, a Friends with Mrs. Ginny live. You are right on time. We're happy to have you. And so, yes, friends. And so that's what that situation, I heard that, and my ears were immediately perked up, because I'm like, Lauren Southern, trad wife, her marriage is in shambles or whatever. It's like, that didn't sound right to me. And so, as someone who is a major defender of marriage, and even though, like I said earlier, like, I understand marriage is a very raw deal for men right now. There have to be some serious changes that are made in the family court system. Like, I just heard that Ben Carson, he's like proposing a bill that'll outlaw no-fault divorce. I think that's terrific. I think that we should make divorce as hard as possible for both parties, especially once there's kids. And so, just make divorce hard again, 2024. Yeah. And so, that's something else I want to do once my platform gets bigger and my reach gets bigger. I want to be a major advocate for marriage reform. And, just put things back where they should be, put more serious consequences on adultery, and make marriage, enticing again. What is enticing about marriage to a man now? These women, they're openly saying that they're not going to do anything for you. They're like, I don't need to cook. I don't need to clean. I don't need to watch the kids, because there's daycare, and there's CoComelon, and there's a dishwasher, and there's, I can buy meals online. So I don't need to do anything for you. You're grown. You can do all your stuff by yourself. It's like, golly, you're right. I can't do this by myself. So what do I need you for? Throw you out. He says, have you ever thought about running for local office, Ginny? Not as of right now. I'm only 25. I don't think I can hold any political office anytime soon, at least for the next 10 years. Or maybe that's just for presidents. Maybe only presidents have to be 35. It's so funny. I thought about it, but not like as like in total earnest, but like kind of in jest, just to put my kind of views on the map, and put my views in front of people. just so that way people could hear someone like me be, have a political stance. And so I could be in like a debate stage, running for like, mayor or something or governor, and, just be up there, saying all my defamatory statements and saying all my wild and crazy harebrained stuff, and just standing on like the absolute like truth of the Bible. And they're gonna be like, I've never heard this before. She's crazy. She's a terrorist. And it's like, so just for that, like the shock value of it, just to get up there and, and then like I'm running for governor, and then at the same time, I'm going to be like, women need to get back in the kitchen and all this stuff. And it's like, you're a hypocrite. And so, I just feel like I would need like my husband to do it. Like if my husband were to like run for office as like a gag or something, then that would be great. And so, but I don't feel like I could do it, just because like I'm an advocate for women being traditional, and it's very untraditional for women to be running for office. He says, I think you'd be super popular among the Christian conservative crowd. I don't know, honestly. The Christian conservatives, they're not as fundamental as I would like for them to be, as they should be. Because EAE, you've seen enough of my stuff that I'm pretty hardcore. And so a lot of people, they're some of the stuff I say, it even rattles their cage. So I would like for people to get there. I would like for the Christian conservatives to get back there, because even most of them are just talking about, oh, we need to oppose gay marriage. And it's like, oppose gay marriage? I mean, gross. I mean, who cares if they get married if we're about to send them off to the volcano? I mean, what are we talking about? Like marriage? It shouldn't even be around. But we got to save all that for June. So give them too many gems. But what is this? Nay? Is that who you're saying? Nay? He says, hey, Ginny, I seen that debate you had with Amira. It was awesome. Hey, let's go. So yes, I was just talking about that earlier, about how I was saying that people should go and watch that if they haven't seen it yet. And so I'm glad that you're giving me a promotion. Thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed it. And he says, yeah, don't mention volcanoes if you want to hold public office someday. Hey, the truth fears no scrutiny. And so I got to speak the truth. I'm nothing if not consistent. You guys come up here to get that real from me. And so I'm gonna always give it to you, straight. This is the no spin zone over here with Mrs. Ginny. And so I'm always shoot from the hip. And J Boogie says the volcano doctrine. Hey, where's my VP at? Somebody go get Josh. But yeah, so friends, don't be dissuaded from the trad life, just because you hear that, oh, I was a trad wife and my life was miserable and I'm broke, because there's probably a lot more to that than it's not being disclosed. So there's that. And so now the main focus of tonight's events is that, where have I been? Why have I been gone? And I know that most of you still don't know, because you do not go to the community tab. Because like I post these videos and they get like 100 views now on average. So good job on the rewatch stream, people who don't make it here on time and actually go back and watch it. So kudos to y'all. We're averaging about 100, 120 views now on my streams. But we're averaging like 6 to 8 views and likes on the community tab. So I know most of you are not looking at the community tab, and so you do not know, but your favorite housewife is now your favorite baby mama. Yes, friends, Mrs. Ginny is now Mama Ginny. I am 11 weeks pregnant, and I am suffering. It is really, really hard. It's really not fun. So yeah, there's a lot to that. I found out pretty much right away, because we were trying. I hate that phrase. Are you trying? Were you trying to get pregnant? I'm just living my life as a married woman. So I don't know what that means, but yeah, sure, we were trying. And so I was tracking my period, and so I knew when I was late. And so I was telling my husband, and my husband, he was really sick of me because I am the girl who cried pregnant. And so, like, all the time, like every month, I'm like, I think I'm pregnant. I hope I'm pregnant. Oh, I may be pregnant. And then he's like, don't talk to me until you take a test, go away. And so I took a test. It was my last test that I had. Because I bought a pack of like, what are they called? Like ovulation strips where you can like test your ovulation and see, when you're fertile and all that stuff. And so it came with one pregnancy test. And so I had my one test that I was saving for when I felt like I really knew. And so my period was like a week late, and I took my test and it was positive. And so I was like, oh, we're parents. And so it was really great. Of course, I'm always advocating that people need to be having more kids, despite what EAE says. Yes, 1 of 10. Let's go. I think now, okay, I should have double checked this before, but I'm pretty sure that the largest number in the Bible that is documented is when Rachel, I believe, she gets married, and the people around her, they're celebrating her, and they're like, may you be the mother of hundreds of thousands of millions. That's what it is. May you be the mother of thousands of millions, which is billions. And so their blessing to her when she was getting married was that I hope that you're the mother of billions of people. And so that would be fighting words to a lot of women today. How dare you wish children on me? I'm having 2, if that. And so yeah, I want to have a whole corral. I want to have a bus full. I want to have a tribe. That's one of the things that my husband and I, that's one of the things that really attracted me to my husband at first when we were getting to know each other and dating, is that I told him, I was like, I want to have a lot of kids. I want to have like 10 kids. I want to have a bus full of kids. And he was like, oh, okay, that sounds like fun. Sure. So, yeah, so that was immediately something that we were on the same page with, thankfully. And so, yeah, I mean, just side note, friends, if you're dating and you have strong opinions about how you feel about kids, whether you really don't want them or you really do, that's something you really need to talk about with that person that you're dating. Because apparently a lot of people don't talk about that, and that becomes a major problem in the relationship later on, which is kind of crazy to me. Like, if it's really that important to you, and it's really important to me, so I always would talk about it right away. As soon as I felt like we were getting serious, I'd be like, hey, I want to have a lot of kids, so how do you feel about that? And so, yeah. And I mean, and of course, speaking of trad wife, that's another thing too, with the whole Lauren Southern thing that's kind of bothered me with her whole trad wife thing, is that, if I weren't a trad wife, I mean, my life would be turned upside down, because I am so thankful that I don't have like a serious job. Like, I don't have like a real hard structured job. I don't have a place where I clock in and clock out and need paid time off and, have a designated location for my job. Like, I'm so thankful I don't have that, because this pregnancy has been so hard on me. I'm only 11 weeks in, and pretty much ever since week 5, I have been like on my back. And those last few streams that I did on my channel, if you go back and see, and I'm like, oh, I'm so tired. Oh, I'm not feeling good. And I was just like, I knew I was pregnant at the time. I was just like keeping it close to the chest. And so I knew that that's what was happening, was that I was, having morning sickness and nausea and fatigue. Oh, that is my number one symptom, is fatigue. Like, thankfully, I'm not having a whole lot of nausea. I haven't been throwing up quite a lot. But I'm just tired all day long. Like, oh my goodness, y'all. And so something I wanted to mention, due to my extreme fatigue, is that, I'm a trad wife, like I was saying. And so I'm a big believer in cooking your own food from scratch and making as much from scratch as you can. And, I believe that the woman should be the one doing the domestic chores. And so my husband and I had a very traditional gender role split up in our house, where he went out, earned the money, fixed the car, did stuff outside, kept us safe, bought the guns, all that good stuff. And then I cooked the food, did the laundry, vacuumed the floor, mopped the floor, cleaned the toilet, all that stuff. And ever since I've been sick, I haven't been able to do that. And I just haven't had the energy, and our house is in shambles. So And pregnancy it's hard on the body, it's hard on the mind, and it's hard on your marriage. Because my husband and I, we've been kind of like at each other's throats. Because I feel like, well, I felt like I've since, changed my mind, because, marriage is about understanding each other and compromising with each other. And so at first I was like, you're not helping, you need to be picking up my slack since I can't do it. And he was like, I'm only one person. I can only do so much work. And he's like, I go out to work and I work for, 10, 12 hours and I come home, you want me to wash dishes? And he was like, I'm not doing that. And so we were having some, head bumping, if you will, at the first. But I call my parents, I talk to them, and they always give me really good advice about marriage. And my dad, God bless him, he was like, don't stress out, don't get stressed out, don't worry, it's not this big of a deal. This is just temporary. And also don't stress him out. That's what you don't want either. And so I didn't have the energy to cook. And so we were like eating out all the time, which is not good for you. And it's really expensive. If we're buying like prepackaged meals, which is not great for you either. And so my dad, he bought us Factor. I don't know if y'all are familiar with this company, but I had only like heard of it. Let's see here. So yeah, I had because YouTubers that I had seen, sometimes they would be like, oh, use this code and get 10% off, Factor or whatever. And Factor is a company that's like a subsidiary of HelloFresh. And so if you're familiar with HelloFresh, that's a company where you still cook the food, but it like comes preset to where like everything that's in the boxes is what you cook, and that's the specific amounts and stuff like that. So there's no waste and all that stuff. And so there's that. And then there's one step less involved, which is Factor, which is literally just pre-made meals. You put them in your microwave or you put them in your oven. That's what we do. We don't have a microwave. And then you just eat it. And so that's what we've been doing. So my dad, he got us these. He's been getting us these for like the past 2 weeks now. And these have been a lifesaver. Oh my gosh. I would be dead if I didn't have these. Abby says crockpot meals are a lifesaver. Girl, I mean, normally, yes. Normally, I am totally right there with you. I live and die by my Instant Pot, which has the slow cooker function. I love my Instant Pot. But you gotta cut up the meat. You gotta cut up your chicken. You gotta cut up the vegetables to put them in the crock pot, and then you gotta wash the crock pot afterwards. Girl, couldn't do none of that. When I say I was out of commission, I mean like I was in the bed all day. Oh my gosh, it was so horrible. Like it was just so awful. It was so miserable. And I wanted to respond to this. He says, Jenny, not to sound too intrusive, but did you guys get blood tests before your marriage? My youngest nephew had sickle cell because his dumb parents didn't know they had sickle cell trait. No, we didn't. And I didn't even know that was a thing, to get a blood test before marriage. And so if I had known that, I would have. But yeah, because like that used to be a thing. Like back in the day that people would get blood tests, just to find out whether or not they're like cousins or something. They would just get a blood test to, make sure they're not too closely related. But for some reason the people don't do that anymore. So yeah, I wish I had. Crockpot liners. No, you're right. You're right about that. My only thing about that is that because you're cooking it in the plastic, and mental, I don't know. But I mean, it's fine at the end of the day. Like it's just temporary, because people, they can get so fixated on things like, oh, don't use nonstick pans, and don't put your food in plastic, and then don't use the microwave and all this stuff. Like they can get so fixated on that. But at the end of the day, like, especially being Christians, I just pray over my food and let God handle it. Because we buy food and hopefully it's organic. Hopefully it's not, doesn't have the vaccine in it. Hopefully it's clean. Hopefully it's healthy. We hope. We don't know. We're not growing most of our food, as most of us here. We're buying our food, whether it be from farmers or from Kroger. We're buying our food from people we don't know. And so we can only just hope that it's what they say it is. I've heard of people like selling stuff at the farmer's market that they bought from Costco. Like that's a thing that happens, you know? So, I mean, yeah, you're right. Like the liners would be good. That's a good idea. Um, so like, but that's why I didn't do it. It's because like I was thinking about, you're like, oh, I don't want to cook my food in plastic. But you know, at the end of the day, like you just gotta live your life and focus on what you can focus on. Like I can't control everything. I can't stop all the pesticides. I can't stop everything being in the food. I can just pray over my food. And God, who, you know, can move mountains and part seas, he can take out the contaminants on my food in Jesus' name. And so, yeah, that's a good idea. Once I get like, I'm trying to get back in the saddle. Um, so like I felt good yesterday. I felt good the day before yesterday. Didn't feel that great today for some reason. I had 2 bowls of Cocoa Puffs, and I think I just kind of like went overboard on my Cocoa Puffs. So, um, so yeah, I think that's why my stomach was hurting today. Um, but yeah, once I get back in the saddle, I'm probably definitely gonna do that, to get reacclimated to cooking again, because we have like some chicken breasts in our freezer that I want to use before they get freezer burned. So I think I will do that. Um, and the EAE says, he says, please get tested. Um, so yeah, that's a good idea. I mean, but I feel like now it's too late, right? You know, because I mean, what if we do have it? Then what are we gonna do? Like, we can't get. I mean, we're not gonna get divorced because we have sickle cell, but I feel like that's something you should do before you get married. But I mean, it's no harm in, I guess, still getting tested for it. But yeah. Oh yeah. So like I was saying with Factor, so my dad bought me that, which is not cheap. Okay, because the food that they sell is supposed to be like organic, natural, local, farmer, you know, all the good buzzwords. And so it's not cheap. And we get like between 15 to 18 meals a week. And they just, you know, get shipped to the house, and we just put them in the fridge and put them in the oven and eat them. And so like my dad, he just has been so, you know, just so like just my whole family. Like I really love my family. I feel like my family is better than most. Like I honestly have really no bad things to say about my family. Like even my kind of extended family, like my immediate family is so great. Like my dad, my mom, my brothers, they're all great. They're all very helpful. You know, they're all, you know, willing at the drop of a hat to come help me and, you know, do things for each other. Like I texted my brother today. I was like, can you come over and help me clean my house? And he was like, sure, I guess. um, but that didn't happen today. Our schedules were too conflicting, but he might come over tomorrow and help me clean. And so yeah, you know, just like my dad, he bought us these meals. My mom, she bought me these really awesome prenatals. I meant to bring them in here, and now I don't want to like get up and leave the stream, but I just put a picture of them on the stream. She bought me these really awesome prenatals. Yes, these right here. Um, and these have really been making all the difference. Like ever since I've been taking these for like the past like 3 days, that is, I've been feeling a lot better. I've been feeling really, really good. And so I highly recommend those. I even put my girl Abby on. So I just want, you know, I want people to be healthy. And so you know, my mom, she bought me those, and those are not cheap prenatals. Those are like high end Gucci vitamins. So she did that. My mother-in-law. So even my husband's side of the family has been, you know, just like completely exemplary during this whole thing. My husband's mom like cooked us a whole bunch of food and brought it over in the early weeks when I told her I was feeling really sick. Gave us like some really good baked chicken, mashed potatoes, green beans, like just really, you know, tasty stuff. And then my husband's grandparents, his dad's parents, they don't do a lot of cooking. They're older, and so they just took my husband to the store and bought him a bunch of sandwich ingredients. And so we were like full of like ham and cheese and bread and pepperoncinis, and that was really good because my husband and I, we love a good sandwich. And so, you know, just people outpouring, you know, giving us money to get things and helping us out. And so, yeah, like just, you know, and it's like what I was saying earlier about having friends You want to have friends because, they're a good support system, and, people who look out for you when you're in time of need. And so I'm just so thankful. Like, there are so many people who have bad family members, like family members that they don't get along with, don't trust, beefing with. And then, people have a lot of in-laws, that's always a running joke. Your in-laws, you can't stand them. But my in-laws have always been great. They've always been very nice to me. My mother-in-law, she and I, we've never been the people like talk all the time. Like, she's always been nice to me, but we're very different. And so we like don't we never like talked a whole lot before. But now she's been texting me all the time, asking me how I'm feeling, how I'm doing. She bought me these like stomach soothing gummies and chews, try to help me help settle my stomach down. Um, and so she's just, she's been more interactive with me now that I'm harboring her grandchild. And so, just so great. Like, I couldn't ask for better family members. They just have completely gone out of their way to do whatever they can for me. And I've been needing it. And so, sometimes you really feel like, I give so much to people and I do so much for people. Like, I mean, I don't know. I feel like I do a lot for people. I feel like I'm always like, I feel like I'm one of those people that you can like call me in the middle of the night and I'll try to do what I can. And I'll try to help you. Because I know that I would want that in my time of need, like be able to just call anybody up and be like, hey, I need you. Can you please come? And then so like you want that same treatment when you're in your time of need. And I feel like my family has just totally risen to the occasion. And they've just been like, what do you need? How can I help? Here am I, Ginny, send me. And so it's just been so great, like, this pregnancy has been so hard, but my family has just been, helping me out as much as they can. And then Abby, she says, just took mine, feeling better already. They really are great. Yes, yes. And, and it's funny, I had my first doctor's appointment today. And it wasn't for the baby, it was for me. It was just a physical. And she wanted to see the prenatals. And, she's a normie doctor. And so she was like, there's no folate in here. I think you need to get one that has folate. And I was like, there isn't any folate in here. I wonder why that is. And I was on their website looking at it, and what it has is like, it doesn't have like vitamins in it. It has like whole ingredients that provide vitamins. So that's like the major difference in it, is that a lot of prenatals, they have like synthetic vitamin D, iron, folate, magnesium, all these different things in their synthetic form that are just like the vitamin themselves, which your body doesn't really absorb very well and can make you constipated, which is not good. And so there's that. But with these vitamins, what they do is that it's bone marrow powder, and it's like oyster powder, and it's like bone broth powder and liver powder. And like, it's not vitamins in their basic form. It's like healthy, natural things that have vitamins in them, like, there's no there's no nutritional facts on a carton of eggs. It doesn't break down exactly all the vitamins and nutrients that are in eggs. It doesn't tell you what's in eggs, but of course eggs are good for you because protein and other stuff that's in eggs. So, like, but something that's processed, it tells you, oh, this has all the different vitamins in it. So it's like that. So it doesn't say that it has folate in it, but I'm sure it does have folate in it because has beef liver in it, which is very good for you. That's like nature's multivitamin. And like other stuff in it as well that, has what you need. And so if you're looking at that, if you're like, in the prenatal market right now, I would definitely recommend that or because this one's from a company called Birthright, and that one's great. Or if you go to Heart and Soil, they have a prenatal. It's not really a prenatal. It's just a woman's vitamin. Getting heartburn. It's that time of the night. And they have one that's called Her Package, which is like a woman's prenatal all-around vitamin for women. And that one's really good too. And so, yeah, that's what I recommend. And so, yeah, just my family has just really stepped up to the plate. And I just wanted to give them a shout out, like, you gotta give people their flowers while they're still here. And, don't let it ever be said of me that I have a problem with any of my family members, because they all cool with me. So like I told y'all earlier that we're about to be moving. The house that we're moving into is owned by a family member. We're going to be renting from family now. Because I think I've mentioned before that I'm really not impressed with where we live right now. Our rental company is not great. They're not very responsive. They're really slipshod. And so the house itself needs a lot of work that they don't really care to do. And so now that we're going to be renting from family come soon, it's going to be a lot better situation. And the house is a lot better. Like this house is only 800 square feet. The house we're going to be moving into is 1100 square feet. So just an all around better situation. So once again, family just being amazing. And so, yeah, just can't say enough good things about the Raspberry Jones people. Abraham says beans, greens, potatoes, tomatoes. Yes, all the things that make the body strong. EAE says, what does being pregnant actually feel like? It never happened to me before. You don't say. I mean, it's different for every woman. Like, okay, so another thing I wanted to mention briefly is that this is not actually my first pregnancy. I was pregnant before last year around this exact time. But that child passed away. I had a miscarriage. And so that pregnancy was very different from this one, in a good way. It's like, so being sick a lot when you're pregnant is actually a really good thing, sadly. It shows that things are moving along as they should. It shows that the baby's where he needs to be. It shows that your hormones are rising as they're supposed to. And that's why you get sick, is that your hormones are rising. Progesterone and the other one, estrogen, I think, they're flaring up. And so your body feels different. It makes you nauseous. It might make you dizzy. It might make you tired. And so that's what's happening. And so if those hormones are flaring, then that's a good thing. I mean, there's some women who don't get any kind of sickness at all and they feel great the whole time. You know, great. And they have healthy babies. But more often than not, women, she will experience some kind of nausea or fatigue or something like that. And that's a good thing. And so my first pregnancy, I didn't have any of that. I didn't have any nausea, didn't really have any fatigue. I felt great the whole time. I was 11 weeks when I miscarried. And I felt good the whole time until I didn't. And so that's that. And so yeah, so you know, I mean, I'm very thankful that I'm very thankful that I'm sick. And I was watching a video about how to survive the first trimester, and the lady, she was like, well, you know, pregnancy is a sign of wellness. And so it's funny because I feel like I'm sick. You know, I feel like, oh, I'm throwing up, therefore I'm sick. But in reality, I'm not sick. I'm actually very healthy. You know, these are signs of me being healthy, which is so funny to think about, that you have to really completely flip your perspective on it. Is that, oh, I'm really tired all the day? Oh, that's because I'm doing really well. That's because my baby is healthy and growing how they're supposed to. So it's really interesting to think about it that way. And it's just, you know, it gives you a good perspective, keeps your mind in the right spirits, that, you know, this is all for a good cause. That, you know, nothing good happens without some sacrifice. You know, you don't make it to a 50-year marriage without some scrapes and bruises. And you're not going to make it to, well, more often than not, you're not going to make it to a full-term baby without feeling some kind of discomfort. And so I am looking forward to December. That's when I'm due. And yeah, so there's that. Abby says that whole foods are always better than the fake vitamins that aren't even bioavailable, which renders them useless. Yeah, exactly. What you'll find is that a lot of midwives, they'll say that prenatal vitamins just give you expensive pee. You're not absorbing them. You're not getting the folate that's in them in the first place. So it's better to have the whole food vitamins. And then she says that, and that goes for all vitamins, not just folate. Yeah, any vitamin. You want to have a whole food based vitamin, so that way you're actually, I mean, at the end of the day, you want to be eating good food to get your vitamin nutrients from. But if you can't do that, then taking whole food vitamins is the next best thing. My assumption would be that it feels like you have to take a huge dump, but I'm assuming that's incorrect. I think that's what birth feels like. You have to take a huge dump, but the jury's still out on that. He says vitamins last a lot longer on the shelf than food that expires after 2 weeks. Yeah, that's true. So taking vitamins is a good way to make sure you're always getting a steady intake of good nutrients. And then something else I wanted to just briefly mention is that I've been having a lot of wild dreams. So if you're pregnant or you've been pregnant before, let me know in the comments if you have experienced these wild dreams. Like that was one of like my first symptoms that I had, was that I just had these crazy vivid dreams. I dream usually. I probably dream normally like once or twice a week. Um, and I don't and they're usually like kind of weird, like crazy, unpleasant dreams. Um, but these, it's not that they've been unpleasant, it's just that they're very like just wild and very vivid. Like they feel more vivid, like they feel more real, they feel more bright, and like they feel more real. So I mean, good grief. I had a dream that an alien invasion came down, and me and the female rapper Lotto were on the top of a building fighting aliens, and then one of the aliens threw me off the building. Like, I mean, just crazy dreams that I've been having. Um, I had a dream. Gosh, I had a dream where my husband and I were doing something. Like I think we were driving somewhere or going somewhere to visit, and then he ended up getting shot. It was just nuts. I mean, I just feel like I am trapped in my body right now. Like I am trapped. I'm having these dreams. I'm trapped, feeling sick. And it's just like, when does it end? So it's supposed to end. Word on the street is I should be feeling better in like 2 or 3 weeks. We'll see about that. Um, but yeah, so yes, EAE, crazy craziness. Um, but yeah, so that was all I wanted to catch up on. I wanted to talk about all that stuff that has been going on in the news as of late. And there's some other things I've been hearing about too. Like I heard about some pastor in North Carolina. His wife deleted herself, and he tried to bring her back to life, and just like craziness. Um, hearing about the Diddy situation that I haven't really been keeping up with, but that's been going on. Boeing, just been literally, I mean, just like obviously and like plainly just been deleting their whistleblowers. Just straight mafioso style. I mean, like craziness. Um, yeah, that's what's been going on. Yeah, it's just white people are a bit crazy, to be honest. I mean, you said it, not me. But anyways, y'all, that's what I wanted to get into. I want to just catch y'all up to speed, show face. I know it's been a while. I know you guys are missing your favorite housewife, so I do apologize, but I had a good reason. And all things considered, I should be back again next week with my, usual topics about, like Christianity and stuff. I have been thinking about a lot of different topics I want to talk about. I've been writing down, I have like a running list of live stream ideas. So yeah, a lot of good stuff coming up. I don't know exactly what I want to do, and I know I need to pre-record a lot of stuff for when I do have the baby, so that way we don't have to have another big hiatus. I can just have a lot of pre-recorded stuff down the, in the shoot, ready to upload. I need to make a lot more videos, like, my daily upload videos that I do. Have a lot of stuff I want to talk about there. So yeah, friends, if you did not get catched up with Mrs. Ginny, if you have not been watching all my past videos, then hey, you might have missed the ball, because the train's about to be smoking again. So there's that. But I don't post on the weekends. So if you haven't yet, you gotta spend this weekend catching up on all things Mrs. Ginny. So that's your homework. Oh my goodness. Yeah, he says squash the beef with the lion and write him a letter so we can get the views up. I am so sick of those people. I'll probably just try to go somewhere else. I follow Jesse Lee Peterson. I planned on like calling into his show, but I just haven't gotten around to that. So I have some more, like my husband said that he would be in a video with me. So I'm planning on trying to milk some content with him, until he changes his mind again and says that he's not going to do that. But yeah, I told him, I was like, Mario, like if you want to, just be able to work on cars and ride your dirt bike all day, then you need to, be advocating for my channel, so that way we can get financially stable. And he was like, oh, well, you put it like that. Maybe I do need to start sharing your videos. And I said, that's right. So yeah, he's such a good sport. You know, with all things, considered, marriage is difficult, and it's hard to live with someone who, is imperfect and flawed, and live with them every day and be with them every day. But I'm very thankful for marriage. You learn a lot about yourself. You learn a lot about the love of God through marriage. Loving your spouse unconditionally. It teaches you a lot about God. Um, and so my husband, he's really been a trooper. So I want to give him a special shout out as well. He's a part of my family, but I want to give him a special shout out that he's been, God bless him. He has been put through the ringer because he's not big on change. He is very regimented with how he likes things to be. He likes things to be the same every day. And so being that I have completely just like dropped all of my chores, like I'm not doing anything. I'm just like getting up, eating, going back to bed. He has, been having a hard time. He's like, this house is a mess. Why does it look so crazy in here? And I'm like, growing your baby is a full-time job. So give me some slack. But yeah, so he's been readjusting. It's hard on the man too, along with the woman. You're both pregnant to an extent. So yeah, he's been trying his hardest to be good and have a good attitude, but it's hard. And Abby says my husband likes and shares all my business posts. That's right. Yeah, you gotta support your spouse. So my husband and I, we're so different that he's like, well, I don't really like my social media isn't like your social media. Like my people, they don't watch like, his stuff is all about cars, and his stuff is all about, his cars and fixing cars. And so he's like, it would be weird to just post some random video about Calvinism on my feed. And I'm like, that's true, but still, regardless. So let's see. What is this? Every dish has to be in a specific spot. Oh, every book has to be a certain angle, or else I can't think straight. Are you really like that? Oh, wow. Because you said you're OCD. I wouldn't say he's OCD. I mean, he's not organized. He's not like everything has to be just so, but he likes the way his schedule runs to be run in the same way, if that makes any sense. So it's not like things in and of themselves have to be particular, but like he likes the way his day runs. So like he likes, he gets up for work, and I used to like pack his lunch for him and put it in the bag and fill up his water bottle and give him a little smooch as he was going out the door. And now, I'm like, the food's in the fridge, go get it. So, and like he would come home and I would have dinner ready for him, because I can see on my phone like where he is on his way home from work. So I make sure I have it ready when he gets home. And then we would sit, we would talk, and then he would go back out and do stuff with his car, and I would do laundry, and just like we had a schedule. And so the schedule has been very much disrupted. And so he's been readjusting. But he's a good sport. At the end of the day, he has a good attitude. So that's all that matters. And my dad has been teaching me, to lay off him and give him, some grace. Yeah, he says that packing your lunch for your husband is so old school, yet amazing. Yeah, men are simple. Men like simple things. So many women, so many women are just so against being nice to their husband. It blows my mind that these women ever got married. I mean, so many women are like, I'm not going to make his doctor's appointment. He's grown. I'm not going to pack his lunch. I'm not going to fold his laundry. It's like, it's just nice to do. Like, what? Like, why are you holding out courtesies to your husband? Like, shouldn't he be the number one person that you want to just go out of your way to do everything for? Like, if I could fix my husband's car, I'd be fixing his car, so he doesn't have to do that every day after work, but I can't. I want to do everything as much as I can for my husband. I'm his helpmeet. Hello, is anybody home? I want to help him as much as I can. I want to do as much as I can for him and help him. And, I give him an edge ups, sometimes on the back of his neck, and I'll trim his beard for him, and I pluck his ingrown hairs, and, I just want to help him. I want to do as much as I can. I love him. So, anyways, Abby, she says, I love cooking and making meals for my husband. It's so fun. Yeah. I mean, it's almost as if you love this man or something. Like you just want to be with him over anybody else. Like, the what? What are we talking about? Like, anyways, so I'm rambling. Um, so yeah, my husband, he popped in and then he left again. Um, so I'm gonna text him, see where he's at, tell him to come home. But oh my gosh, it's almost 10:30. I didn't realize it was that late. But oh man. EAE says, what is this thing you call love? Never heard of it. And that's a sad fact. And most people, they actually don't ever experience real love in our marriage. And that's a shame. I should probably talk about that soon. Is that, the love that you're supposed to have for your spouse and in a marriage is supposed to be unconditional. Like, like something that happened, a few weeks ago, my husband and I, we had like a really deep conversation, like a heart to heart with each other. And I was telling him, I was like, I don't feel like you really, tell me everything. Like, I don't feel like, you're really fully transparent with me about everything that you do or, everything that, goes on with you. And I feel like that's not fair. Like, I try to be really transparent with you and I try to tell you everything that I do and what goes on with me and like where I spend the money and who I'm hanging out with. And so it's like, I don't feel like that from you. And we really talked and we really just like, poured out our hearts and our minds to each other. And he told me some things that he didn't tell me and that he was keeping from me. And, and it's like, and I told him before he said those things, I was like, I'm not going to leave you. Like, like I'm always going to be here for you, but I just want to be able to know that my husband tells me everything. Like, my husband is so honest with me. Like, she's transparent with me. Like, I can trust my husband, like, before anybody. Like, I want to be able to say that. I want to be able to feel that way. And I was just expressing that to him. And I was like, you never have to worry about me leaving you. Like, you never have to worry about me using something that you say to me in confidence and using it against you, like in divorce court or in family court. Like, that's never going to happen. Like, just like get that idea out of your head. Because of course, people there, they are, what is that word I'm looking for? What is the word I'm looking for? Like, they're motivated by consequences or like good or bad things. So a person is gonna, not say something if they feel like there's gonna be a negative consequence from it, or they will say something if they feel like it's gonna be a positive thing. And so, I wanted to just completely just like, rinse his mind from that. It's like, we're not talking about like breaking up or anything like that. Like, I just want, like, you can tell me the most horrible thing, but I just want to be able to trust you. Like, I want to be able to know that no one else out in the world knows something about you that I don't know. I'm your wife. And so he was confessing some things to me. And, it was just so beautiful. Like, the fact that my husband and I, like, we trust each other. And like, he knows that, I'm not out here doing anything, with anything, like whether it be with another man or with our money or, what have you. Like, he trusts me. Like, the Bible says that, the I think it's Proverbs 31 something. And it's like, her husband's heart doth safely trust in her so that he need no need of spoil, And so it's like, I want my husband to trust me. And so many women are untrustworthy. And, that, I mean, I can see that, as very clearly. And so, I work really hard to, be transparent with him so that way he can always, never fear, especially now that we're having a baby. I have no problem taking a paternity test once the child is born because the truth fears no scrutiny. I don't have anything to hide. I just always want there to be just this absolute, like lock in trust with us. And so, and I'm so thankful that we have that. And so many people don't have that. So many people don't trust their spouse. So many people like they're sneaking around and they feel like they can't trust them, can't talk to them about things. And I never wanted that. And I don't think that's a real marriage. I don't think that's a real relationship. I remember one of my brothers told me years and years ago, when he dated this girl and they broke up because he felt like he couldn't trust her. And he was like, remember, Ginny, your relationship is nothing if you cannot trust that person. And I mean, he told me that when I was in like middle school, and he's like 6 years older than me. So yeah, I mean, he told me that when I was young, and I was like, you cannot have anything in your relationship if you cannot trust them. And so, yeah, I mean, it's really sad. A lot of people, they never really experience true love in their marriage, and I feel bad for them. EAE says, where I grew up, it was rare if your parents didn't regularly call the cops on each other. Good night. Or if the husband didn't regularly hit his wife. That's honestly my perception of marriage to this day, to be honest. And I don't blame you. Um, I mean, how could it not be? That's what you saw in your formative years. And so of course you have a scary, slanted, um, you know, upsetting view of marriage because that's what you saw. And so, I mean, I didn't have a perfect view of marriage either. I mean, I never saw anybody hitting each other, but I mean, my parents were divorced and most of my friends' parents were divorced. So it wasn't necessarily that I saw a bad view of marriage, actually. It was just I didn't see a whole lot of marriage. People at church were married. And so the people that I knew that were married had good marriages. And those people are still married to this day, people I saw like in youth group and things like that. So the people that I knew weren't married, they just were already divorced, like had already been divorced before I met them. So and their divorces were amicable. They were good with the child custody, no craziness in that regard. And then people who I saw were married had happy marriages. And so maybe that's why I still believe in marriage. Because I just feel like I've seen successful marriages. I've known people who have successful marriages. My dad's marriage was not successful, sadly, but I had two uncles who had successful marriages. Both of them died, with their wife, their only wife they ever had. So I saw it in my family, that marriage can work and that it can be beautiful. And I saw it at church, and that's kind of only where I saw it, but I did see it. And so I knew it could work, and one of my uncles, he was a nutcase. I mean, he was something. And so, I mean, if he can hold his marriage together for 50 years, then I can, for Pete's sake. So, yeah, I mean, he was a hoot. But so yeah, I saw that even crazy people can hold their marriage together. I mean, come on. Trust is important, and so is forgiveness. Forgiveness in marriage is so powerful. Yes, yes. And they have to go hand in hand. So your husband is not gonna feel like he wants to disclose everything to you if he knows you're gonna hold it over him. Like if he knows that all I'm doing is just giving you argument fuel for the future, like he's not gonna want to be open with you. So you have to, be able to control yourself as a woman, or either party. You have to be able to control yourself enough to not use that against them at a later time. To say like, if your spouse says, "Oh, I spent $400 on this and I never told you," you can't bring that up later on. You have to just let that go. And you have to just move forward, because that is for the betterment of the relationship. And so, yeah, it's hard, but I mean, I'm walking through it. And so I'm always telling you guys, like, people from, who are in their 50s and 60s, they want to tell you how marriage, works and that they can do it. And of course that's true, because, people are still people at the end of the day, regardless of the decade. But, it does feel like people were a little bit different back then, and marriage might have been a little bit easier back then. And so I'm right with you. I'm in the, the Tinder, Ashley Madison, OnlyFans, I'd rather be with a bear instead of a man generation. Like I'm in the trenches right now with y'all, and I'm having a successful marriage. And so if I can do it, then you can do it too. Because my husband and I, we're nothing special. We're just two people who are just committed to not ending up in family court. So, what does it take to not get divorced? Well, just to stay married. But, to be happily married, that takes more work. But we're just committed to not going to divorce court. Like, we're just like, that's never going to happen. That's off the table for sure. But yeah. So, like I said, I'm rambling. Like, I gotta go. But I just love coming up here and talking to you guys. It's always such a good time. You guys are such a treat. I'm so thankful for you guys. And there's a few new faces. Like we saw, there's that guy El Cheapo. He's new, and there's a few more subscribers here. I think when I left, I had like 590, and now I have like 607. So we have a few new faces here that hadn't been formally introduced to Mrs. Ginny. So greetings and salutations. So yeah, I was really missing you guys. I really had to come back up here and set some things straight because man, just life just keeps going on without you. I mean, the world keeps turning and the crazy stuff has been happening. So I had to come up here and do all of that. So friends, please be sure if you missed any part of the stream, that when it's over to go back and watch it. We're trying to get this watch time up. I got a strike on my channel, so I gotta kind of keep it close to the chest for right now. Even though June is soonly quickly approaching, and I'm probably gonna go scorched earth come June. But you know we'll cross that bridge when we get there. And so yeah, hopefully we can get the channel monetized before then. But if not, it's all good. I have my Patreon, have a Cash App, and I'm trying to build up my Rumble account because Rumble is pretty much where YouTube is pretty much where content creators are moving to. Rumble is still very clunky right now. I really don't like the interface, but it's in its baby stages. You know, it's going to continue to get better. It's going to continue to get more user friendly. And so I want to already get myself stabilized up there, you know, when it gets better and more people start to flock to it. So be sure to head over there and follow me over there on Rumble, you know, just in case I wake up one day and my channel is nuked off of YouTube. That's where I'll be. And yeah, and be sure to go to the community tab every Sunday because that's where I post my little updates, you know, in between the weeks and whatnot. So, friends, it has been a blessing and a pleasure as always talking to you guys. I love seeing you in the chat, talking to you, interacting with you. And I look so forward to talking to you again next week. Have a great weekend.